March 5th, 2025. It's Weekly Manga Recap. Beware the odds of manga. I am Nick, joined by Quinn. It's a Weekly Manga Recap time because it's Wednesday, everybody.
Are there other times of the year that get particularly Weekly Manga Recap-y?
I don't know.
All right, well.
Yes? Maybe? I don't know.
You ever get like 7 p.m. on a Sunday and you're like, remember we used to do this then?
We used to do this then, yeah.
Yeah.
We've certainly spent more time on Wednesdays than Sundays by this point. I don't know.
I don't
remember when we started doing it.
I don't want to look at when mathematically we did it because I feel as though we made that switch when we moved over to discussing everything via the magazine. And that was a couple years into the podcast, but we've been doing this podcast for a while, so we may very easily have been in Wednesdays for like a decade now.
Possibly. But I am too lazy to look it up, so we will move ahead towards the future, which is shining bright with inky pages with no coloration on them, because that is how manga is drawn and made.
Well, hold on. Now we got to make sure there's nothing that has a color page this week, because then we would look like a fool. Well, hold on. Damn, Hima-Ten, you fucking bitch, Hima-Ten. Holy shit, you fucking asshole. We were fucking perfect besides you. Nick,
why can't you just give us nice things, Hima-Ten? Well, I'm likely to enjoy reading you. But, you know, when I make baseless demands of you, I expect those to be followed.
Grabbing Hima-Ten by the collars and shaking them, be like, why can't you be like your little brother, new Exorcist?
I never get color pages.
They're like, 1, they're older than me. 2, yeah, we have a ton of series to talk about. Some of them might even be good ones.
Yes. I mean, by sheer virtue of there being so many options, yeah. I think that Ninja pointed out to us that literally every series that we normally cover is in the recap except Boruto this week.
Black Clover's not either.
Well, yes, I guess that does. It is something that we do cover when it comes out. All right. So let's, I guess, jump into it. We got an Ichi the Witch to begin with. His 24th hunt, Gokuraku and Male Witches. Gokuraku has just shown up. He knows that Ichi is a witch now and just has stolen him. Just is running off with him under his arm and got away with this. Because.
I mean, he's so fast. Like, Descaros is probably fast enough to catch up to her, but she thought, like, Komiki was going to? I don't think she...
I guess not. Descaros does try and stop him. She begins by summoning Tortle, which is a tortoise turtle magic that has some sort of, like, woven cage thing, almost like the kind that you... almost like a jungle gym you would put a child inside to play, except that it doesn't... It looks like they would have difficulty getting in and out of it, maybe.
It looks like the wheels they used to use on American Gladiator. That they used to, like, you'd have to roll across a fucking field or whatever on it. Yeah.
However, he just kicks through it, breaks through the magic immediately, refers to Descaros as girly, which is, I don't know, like, yes, she is female. All right.
Almost all the powerful women in this world, or almost all the powerful people in this world, are women, by the way. That's just a mechanic to how it works. I also appreciate that he calls the move Simple Kick, because there's nothing else interesting going on to it. He's just like, it's just a simple kick, and I can break through your turtle.
All right. You listen here, Discord. I'm doing nothing right now, and you are choosing not to operate properly. What's the deal?
Oh no, we have so many series to talk about if it's already starting. On my end,
Okay,
it's
it is completely frozen.
interesting. It's taking a bit. I'll take over. Deskra summons another one of her spells, Ding Dong. It's a big bell. It's got a little elephant tusk and ears. And she's like, well, that takes care of that because it slams down on top of them. And then there is like, all right, well, let's get going out of here. And there's a moment of, okay. There is a moment where there's like, huh? What's going on? There's kind of silence, and Deskros lifts up the bell, and there's a giant hole underneath. What is it? Gokuraku dug a hole very quickly, might I add. I assume, very shovel-like fingers or something like that. Very successful. This is a hole with, like, width. Like, seems larger than they needed to. So, feel like showing off. Drags Ichi through it and is like, hey, are you good? And he's like, cool. All right, I'm glad you are. But they arrive in a crowd of goats. And he's like, oh, what is this? Goat poo? And he sees all the goats and he goes, well, great. He says, oh, great, but I don't want to be reminded of air gear right now. Gokuderu is like, oh, sorry, we popped up. Well, anyways, I'm going to get going. Catch you guys later. Tries to get going, but the goat charges after him, and Gokuderu just, like, cuts its head off. It's kind of unclear exactly how he accomplishes that. I'm not actually sure. He just, I guess, swipes his hand, and he, like, Toriko knifed the situation, basically. And the goat's dead. That goat's gone. He has a little note. He's like, see, I was telling you, that's why you shouldn't have paid us any mind. And he's like, all right, well, we should go wash up and eat right now. So he just, still with Ichi, like, kind of headlocked under his arm, just kind of like, oh god, what is the wrestling finisher that's like this, where you just like kind of have them in a reverse DDT and just jump forward? It's someone shitty's finisher. I don't know who. He does it anyway right into there, and he's like, see, we're all clean now. But this is when Ichi catches a look at Gokuraku's back and sees that there are sort of like these magic crystals sort of embedded into his skin along the spine, and a lot of discoloration around those marks. So Ichi's like, well, you're clearly human, but what else are you? And Gokuraku's like, oh, this? Well, I built it, actually. And he's like, yeah, you know about magic items? Well, let me explain it ultra simply then. I messed with my body a whole bunch so that I could touch magics as a man. An anti-magic human is what you could call me. But you see, there's one guy I really want to punch. And Ichi is curious about it, but does not know what to say. So Gokuraku is just like, hey, forget about all that stuff. Anyways, I got to find out about you. You're a man. How could you use magics? I've never seen anyone like you. How'd you do it? You got to just tell me all this sort of stuff. And Ichi has a moment where he just pulls up a knife and kind of uses it as like a separation between the two of them. And he's like, let me dress that goat, because once the heart stops, the blood will coagulate, and that'll make it harder to butcher them. And he just starts, like, kind of working at it. And he's like, Ichi notes, like, hey, you made a very clean cut on this animal. You killed it instantaneously without it feeling any pain whatsoever. And he just smiles as he looks like Gokuraku is like, hey, now if we eat it, it's like a proper hunt then. I was going to call him Goku. I can't remember his exact last part of his name. Goku's like, you're weirder than I thought. And Ichi's like, yeah, I hear that a lot. So even amongst this world, he is still considered a bit of an oddball here. The two spend some time. Gokuraku uses his incredible strength to, like, I believe, blow up a cave to, like, create room for them to, like, rest in. And off screen, Gokuraku has been told the story about Ororo, and he's like, so when you hunted this Ororo critter, it made you a witch. Interesting. And Aurora's just like, what is it with you and attracting weirdos? Like, stop doing this. This is really bad. I told you I'm not talking to anyone. And Goguraku eats Ororo. Like, he just chomps down and goes ill gross. And Ororo, of course, just like rematerializes on Ichi and is just like, why did you do that? That was weird. And he's like, I don't know. I just thought it would work. Maybe it would get me a little closer to being a witch. Ichi says, it'll just make you sick. And Goguraku says, lucky, I wish I had an Ororo too. Man, isn't there some way for me to be a witch too? Ichi pulls us back to our earlier conversation saying, hey, you said there's a guy you wanted to punch. Is it? And he doesn't get to finish. I have to assume it's the World Hater magic. And Goguraku is just already asleep. He is seriously sort of conked out and Z'd up, as the kids say. They don't say that, but sometimes you just have to throw something out there and see if they do say it. Ichi takes this opportunity to be like, I guess I'll also go to bed. And Ororo pops up and is like, hey, Brutalizer, you want to be a witch, right? All right, make a deal. All you gotta do, you just gotta kill this kid. So, Ororo is up to his shenanigans once again, and Ichi is, I guess we're gonna see. I feel like this is going to be a real character test moment of Goguraku, but it's always fun to see Ororo being kind of just a little, like, scheming shithead. I just kind of think that's where he's at his best in this series. Yeah, that's the chapter. I guess we're going to find out what happens. Does Ichi get killed next chapter and it's the last chapter? Who knows? Could happen. It'd be weird if it did. It's very popular, but you could do that. All right. To the audience, by the way, we do not know currently what's going on with Nick's connection. It worked perfectly fine and then just suddenly kind of stopped. The stream is still going. I'm still just going to keep on recording unless I get word that Nick can't do it or something like that. So we're just going to keep rolling with this and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to move right us into Blue Box. This is Blue Box number 186. I hope he doesn't feel lonely. And you'll have to apologize. I'm not prepared to recap all these chapters, so I might have to kind of like take a second to be like, what did these characters say? There might be a lot more verbatim stuff. But this chapter opens with Chinatsu. She wakes up. She's getting dressed. She's ready to like kind of get her day started. And as she's passing by, she hears a beeping sound going off in Taiki's room. And she kind of, knocks and she's like, hey, morning, Taiki, something's going off in your room. And there's not really any response. So she's like, pardon me. And she opens the door. And I guess it's like a portable air conditioner unit that's going off or something like that. But also, Taiki is still asleep. And his alarm is right there. And Chinatsu's just like, hey, Taiki, it's morning. Wake up. And she sees his alarm. And she's like, well, come on, Taiki. Let's go to morning practice. She just notes, there's only so many of them I can go to before I leave the team. And she just watches Taiki sleep for a moment, thinks to herself, could staying asleep make time stand still? And as someone with depression, no, that is not how it works. I need to be very clear. Does not work that way. Taiki wakes up in that moment and is like, why are you in my room? And Chinatsu grabs him on the hands and is like, come on, let's get going to morning practice.
Hi.
It's Nicholas.
I literally don't know what happened.
I was going to say it was different from our usual sort of thing because I was like, you're fine on my end. I can still hear you and see you.
Just was not getting any visual or audio from you at all. I just had and that was it. And so I was like, all right, I'll restart Discord. It's fine. So thanks, Discord. You're great. You're great.
Doing great. We are in Blue Box on page 5. Chinatsu and Taiki go into morning practice and doing real good. They're in December.
Yeah, they then Taiki realizes that's kind of a problem because the Winter Cup is starting on the 24th. It has been, of course, established previously that Christmas Day is the big day for Chinatsu. But Taiki is like, that means that she's not going to be going to practice anymore. You know, she'll be done with basketball after that tournament's done, regardless of whether or how well her team does. So Taiki's freaking out as he counts out how many days there are left, and then goes, "No, I need another year of this." He's just like collapsing. Oh, woe is me. And Kyo, very maturely, he's being a captain. He's setting up the nets for the badminton club, and he says, "I hope those remaining 3 weeks serve as a productive practice period for her." And Taiki's like, "Stop being mature. Stop."
Taiki's like, "Shut the fuck up."
You're making me look really, really pathetic over here with all of my wanting to spend more time with my girlfriend. But Kyo points out, like, hey, in a few months, we're going to be third years, and that means that we have our own things that we have to worry about. We're going to have final nationals qualifiers in mind. This is the last chance that they're going to have in order to go to nationals. They're going to be in that position now. Yuza comes by, Haruto, comes by and says to Taiki, "Hey, let's play singles." And he's like, "All right, yeah, sure." And Taiki reflects on, you know, his relationship with Haru and how he's like, "I wonder if this is how he felt, you know, when me just kind of like, let me practice with you, let me play against you." But, you know, Taiki just reflects on how, like, things really have changed a lot in a year. It's gone by so quickly. But that's how everything is in high school. Things change much more quickly.
Yes.
Chinatsu is practicing with her team at the same time. And then we cut ahead to the two of them heading out on another day, as Taiki's mother is commenting that she's not going to be making lunches for Chinatsu in a little bit longer. And Chinatsu's very sweet about it. She says, "I'm going to miss it because you make really, really tasty omelets for me. It's very sweet." And the two of them head off, and they are talking a bit about how, like, you know, some of their people outside their sports clubs are now. Like, Haru seems to be doing just fine, but according to Chinatsu's comment, Nishida seems to be getting in trouble a lot. Which yeah,
makes sense, yeah.
Taiki asks Chinatsu to go on ahead because even though everyone knows they're going out now, he says just kind of call it a line I've drawn in the sand. I guess just like there are certain, like, you know, things that I just don't want, like, to do in our relationship, I guess, in terms of how close we are to each other.
It seems to matter to him. Maybe he just also enjoys that they have this routine where they don't walk together, and at this point he's just savoring every ounce of this routine for as long as he can.
Yeah, and however, that routine is getting disrupted a little bit because when Chinatsu makes it to the gym, some of her younger teammates are there, and they say, "Oh, well, the Winter Cup's coming up, and so we wanted to follow your example and, you know, arrive at practice really early." And Chinatsu's really, really happy. She's like, "Oh, I've got someone else that I can actually play with now." So she's got someone who will actually, you know, like, defend against her while she's practicing.
I was going to say, she has somebody to actually play basketball with, as opposed to just like, I guess I'll just practice 3-pointers.
Taiki comes into the gym shortly after that, and one of the teammates who does get named, I think, in this chapter, but I don't think she's really ever, like, Kaho, I think is her name. She observes Taiki coming in, and, you know, more time goes by as we head through December. It's like it gets to the point where it's like halfway through the month, and gradually, you know, like, you know, Taiki is you know, just showing up. He's there in the background, which Natsu's practicing, and now Kaho and the other girl are there too. And so they're kind of like, you know, getting into the gym roughly at the same time that he is. And Kaho's just kind of like looking between them. And eventually she says to her, like, "Hey, So did you guys like? Was it because you were going to morning practice at the same time? And Jen's like, what? And Kaho says, well, Inamata didn't really have any connection with you, it seems like. So I've kind of been confused why you guys were dating. But I guess, you guys were always here really early. And Jenna says, yeah, that's true. I mean, it's not the only reason, but yeah. And Kaho gets like really excited because she thinks that this is like kind of a combination like power couple / romantic thing of like, oh wow, that's you guys have like the same values, you woke up early and stuff like that. I kind of understand what you see in him now as a result of that. And she goes really really in depth about like, she's learned one detail, so now she's got like 5 paragraphs that she can write about this, and she not to just casually thinking to herself like, is she doing okay in her class, like with all this thought she puts into other stuff? But then she brings up, I think it would actually be really lonely if you came to this big gym all by yourself. And Chinatsu reflects like, yeah, I guess I would have felt lonely if that were the case. But I didn't feel that way. And she literally goes swoon. Just like a little one in her heart. She Aw.
Yeah, she's just being, an adorable little goober.
But they do have stuff to get through. And as they head off to practice more, Chinatsu reflects like, I hope Taiki doesn't feel lonely when I have to leave the team, because then he won't be going with me anymore. But another day rolls around. Taiki gets to the gym, and this time Chinatsu and her teammates aren't there. The gym is completely empty, and he's thinking like, well, I know that Chinatsu like left the house before I did, so she should be here. So he looks around, and he sees that there is a little sign that's been hung up, and it's a ransom letter. It says, "We have Chinatsu Kano. If you want her back, come to the far right warehouse." And it is signed, the Phantom Thief Steel. Chinatsu's been kidnapped, Quinn, apparently.
I mean, this is wild. I'm excited. Next week's probably gonna have like a car chase in it or something like that. I imagine we're gonna have to meet like a detective character of some kind.
Yeah.
Someone's gotta be.
Gonna have to recruit a good Phantom Thief. Gonna have to go over to Sid Craft and recruit Lulu in order to combat this Phantom.
That's actually the very interesting thing about this, Nick. These 2 series actually take place in the same universe at the same time. Sid Craft is modern day. They exist in a country where they just don't have any of the cool stuff. And that's where all the crimes happen. But as it is here, they still hear about the exploits of Detective Sid Craft. The country Sid Craft takes place in doesn't have technology, and all of its pants are vacuum sealed onto the women when they put them on. Those are sort of like the 2 defining things, and it's going to be interesting to see how these characters interact.
Yes, that thing that's definitely going to happen, absolutely.
It's actually going to be the start of the new Jump Superstar series. They're going to start here, and then they're going to bring in a new series each week. The week after that, it's new Exorcist. The week after that, it's going to be Astro Royale. And I'm like, this is weird, guys, that you would wait at least 5 weeks to bring in One Piece if you're trying to do a crossover. I don't know. I wouldn't pick these series that suck over and over again. But they're going to do it just because those are the ones that wouldn't just naturally, they just sort of fit together.
Just a Jump All-Stars game, but it focuses almost exclusively on the non-action adventure combat-based series instead.
It's actually, it's a sports version of Jump Superstars. Not basketball or badminton, though, because obviously they would have too big of an advantage there. It's actually billiards. Everyone just has to play billiards, or what's the delicious sounding one called? Snooker?
Snooker?
What's the one that everyone like brings up that has like little bouncy dongles, little bumpers? And it's called like Snookles, or like
there is a snooker game. Yes.
Exactly, the delicious sounding pool equivalent.
you say that they're playing billiards. Does that mean that Rio from Gamblefish can show up in it, even though it's not a Jump series?
She may, on the one condition that, of course, keeping to canon, she does not do anything of importance. So
Right.
she is not allowed to use her billiard skills in any way. She is not allowed to do any
She's
of that
forced
sort
to
of
take
stuff.
her clothes off against her will multiple times.
Well, that's where once Sidcraft kind of comes in, all the wheels start coming off of this, and clothing as well starts coming off as well. So, anyways, look forward to this next week. And if it doesn't happen, just know that you entered into the wrong timeline, and I'd get out of that one if I could.
Okay. Guys, Chainsaw Man. It's chapter 195. Kill me tears. And we have Asa pointing her finger gun at Denji, suddenly having taken over her body from Yoru, who was playing around. And she unexpectedly then points the finger at her own head. And she's pulling a face while she does it. It's, I suppose, a look of consternation, but she looks almost like she's giving like a wry look while she's doing it, like,
She's trying to be cool. And then immediately realizes she's not tough enough for this.
She immediately drops her hand and is like, no, I absolutely can't do it. I'm too scared. And then she's like, okay, but don't point it at me. All right. And then she does. And Asa changes tack by saying, Denji, kill me. Or I'll kill you. Because Yoru is thinking something crazy, and beating the Death Devil will not solve anything. She is planning something even worse than humanity's extinction. Interesting. No details on that.
I would have to assume if what Yoru wants is death to be killed, but war to be eternal. Which, that sounds like something that's, like, yeah, just the situation they're in now, just running eternally. Like, people can't die. Yeah, that sounds worse.
But she says, it's so bad, I don't even want to say it. So if you don't kill her now, it's going to be disastrous. And she continues, however, to point her finger gun at Denji and be like, come on, kill me. And he's like, well, why are you pointing the gun at me? And she says, because I don't have the guts to shoot myself. And then she starts getting, upset with herself for ever trusting Yoru. But Denji says, I mean, I think you guys could be friends. And she was like, no, obviously we can't. So kill us, or do you want to die? And Denji looks very, he's a little concerned, but he's not as concerned as you would think that he would be, given that, he's got a cannon pointing at him right now. And he just goes, grabs a chair and takes a swing at her and breaks it against the floor directly where she was before she stumbled backwards. And then Asa calls him a murderer for trying to kill her with a chair, and he says, you told me to kill you. And she says, you could have some restraints about it. I'm not prepared to die, obviously. And Denji makes a very good point, which is, look, I die and come back to life all the time. And I'm never ready for it. You don't get to do that. You're never going to be ready for it. So Asa slumps over and she starts to cry because, she's in this horrible situation.
She's also 16, so it makes sense.
Denji sits down with her. Seems very similar to the way that they sat together in the aquarium, come to think of it. And Asa brings up a whole bunch of people have died because of this devil that is inside of her, and she does not want to happen to anyone else because of her inaction. But Denji points out, yeah, but you're afraid to die. So, I've got an idea. Let's think about all that unpleasant stuff after I murder the Death Devil. Right now we're having fun. So just think about blasting through that thing. And he points at a building in the distance. And so Asa's still crying, but she points her finger at the building that Denji has pointed out. And then we cut away from there to the Pray for Tokyo School Festival that Fami had brought up.
That was very important, and she could not miss.
Absolutely. The advisor for the student says, like, yeah, you guys, you sure have it rough because you're moving to Tokyo. And he's talking to a student who's following him. He says, a whole bunch of the students evacuated. The city is, however, still telling us we got to put on this school festival. It's crazy. Comes into the students and says, hey, guys, I've got a transfer student to introduce. Go ahead. Introduce yourself. And I am going to confess, if this is a character I meant to recognize, I do not.
Well, in a way, I think you are supposed to recognize them, Nick. And in another way, we've never met them before.
Oh.
I assume that this is either the Death Devil, or some people have theorized this might also be the new version of the Control Devil if Nayuta is actually dead. But it seems more likely, I think, that this is the Death Devil.
She seems very nervous, and she says, I know this is sudden, but I'm here to save you guys. And that's it.
I really thought, as Foxcloak in the chat mentioned, that when we saw Asa point her finger at the building, and then it cut to all the kids at the student council, I was truly expecting the next panel to be them getting erased. Like, there's just sometimes where you're like, well, of course these jokes are going to continue into the next, like these sequences. If this is the Death Devil, it would make sense. I do like the idea that the Death Devil is nervous and terrified all the time. Nick, how does that connect to your eager ambition that the Death Devil, of course, was going to be goth? Where does she rate on a goth scale from 1 to 10?
Hold on. I didn't. Now, this is mischaracterizing the conversation that we had.
I asked Nick, what would you like the Death Devil to be like? And you said hot, goth, and giant cans, I believe were the exact words
We're getting considerably further from the truth the longer you go.
So what is...
I think the only thing that is true in the statement that you had was goth.
Yes. Well, Nick, where does she rank on your goth scale?
This is very not goth.
Okay. Interesting.
I will also point out that if there's supposed to be, like a 4 horsemen of the apocalypse set of devils, then maybe it's not either of them. Maybe it's like pestilence, right?
I thought they made control into pestilence.
I guess you're right. Yeah. Could it also potentially be power? Like the incarnation of the Blood Devil?
I mean, yeah, theoretically it could. Yeah, I guess it theoretically could as well.
But
we'll have to wait till next time to find out. Or we just won't. Who knows? They could just wait on it for like 6 months at this point. I don't know what Chainsaw Man's going to do. Nick, we have a Dandadan chapter called chapter... called chapter 184, the class rep's head. And we open on the class rep's head. And Ira's like, oh no. She goes jumping into the sky. She shoots out her hair to like hold her up in the space, and she like grabs the head. It's very cool. And she's like, oh my gosh, Rin, what happened? How did this happen?
I keep forgetting that her little friend is named Kawabanga.
Yes. Kawabunga's like, Skank, it's you! You have to help Rin. She knows,
no malice at all whatsoever. Just calls her a skank.
Just calls her a skank. These headless people down there did this to her. They grabbed her and they slam dunked her. And when they do that, your head pops off. While that's going on, the heads start getting fired at Ira, and she is sort of dodging, and she notes that, like, hey, something's coming out of Rin's neck. And she's like, hey, Kawabanga, you're a yokai, right? What are these people? Well, they are the severed head dribblers. The legend says if you go into a gym at night to play, headless basketball players will appear looking for balls, specifically heads. And Ira is just like, I don't know what we're going to do. We have to find who has the power here. But then a voice calls out that says, Miss Shiratori. And Ira looks down. Rin is alive. just doesn't have the rest of her body, but her head is still
Yeah.
able to talk. And she's like, "Thank goodness you're here." Miss Yukishiro is like in really big trouble. Ira freaks out because a decapitated head is talking to her. Rin is freaked out because she has no body,
And nobody has her.
yeah. And Kumabanga is like, "Rin, you're alive!" She's just excited.
She's just like, "Look, things are okay now.
Yeah. She is informed that Rin's body is basically stuck between this world and the afterlife. And as it stands, her life force will continuously leak out of her head. And if it all goes away, then she will drift into space for eternity. Another couple of heads come at Ira. And Kumabanga tries to bravely sacrifice themselves. Like, no! And Ira's like, "You fucking idiot." And she takes the shot instead. She kind of blocks it with her back. It does a lot of damage, though, because it, explodes her, like, the back, basically. Like, any fabric that was on her back is gone, and then there's just, like, a massive, like, bruise that covers the entirety of her. And she falls to the ground. She is, right now, kind of done for. It was a very, very powerful attack to hit. And one of the one of the decapitated basketball players grabs Ira by the head and starts dribbling her head like a basketball, but never letting go of it, just kind of going wham, wham, wham.
That's a travel.
It is a travel. That ref, the decapitated ref, should also be calling this. But it looks like it's going to go slam dunk Ira, and when that happens, her head's going to pop off. But Ira recalls, I remember when I was a kid, we had like a little doll that I played with in like a bathtub. We were like children playing house. And she's like, "Oh, I thought you would become just a head." And she's like, "Oh, it appears you would know nothing about what's popular in Japanese bath salts these days." And Ira recalls how Rin's body is in between this world and the afterlife. She's alive, but her body is in the afterlife. And she takes her hair, she wraps it around Rin, and she reverse dunks her, basically shoves her up through the bottom of the net, and doing so reconnects her with her head. That may not be that useful, though, because she immediately gets grabbed again by another basketball player, and they're going to double dunk their heads. But Rin is now currently able to activate her power, and she does. We get a 2-page spread of her activating her Kappa powers and sending people flying with her gravity control. And she notes, "Thank you, Miss Shiatori. I'll be able to sing now." We get a joke of Ira being like, "What the fuck is up with this outfit?" And Rin's like, "Please don't talk about it." And she's like, "No, it's really crazy. How are you not embarrassed?" And she's like, "Please stop."
And Kawabanga is like, "She is the singing and dancing idol. She should be dressed this way."
Yes. A bunch of the headless basketball players fire off some heads at them, but Rin's power just sends them straight to the ground. And she says, "You get behind me. I'll defend us from the attacks." And Ira says, "Don't be, what is it?
Honorably ridiculous.
Honorably ridiculous." I knew she had a weird way of phrasing it. Honorably ridiculous. I'm the leader here, aren't I? So, counterattack time. We'll see what these two can do and see if they can find out who's the one controlling the headless basketball players.
I love the inventiveness of the demon basketball players. Your head comes off if you get slam dunked through the hoop. It's so silly.
The brutality of the one that was dribbling Ira's head, dribbling. I was like, oh my god, I would. This may be the most savage thing I've seen in this series, and I've seen children almost get like decapitated.
And also you can see like how badly her back is injured when that happens, because she's being picked up and like stuff is coming off of her back wound. It's very brutal but very cool. And I like that. Hey, we've got these two girls that are have these very bizarre different power sets that are getting a cool battle scene together.
Yes.
So nice stuff. All right, Kaiju number 8. Chapter 122.
I like the question mark. Like Kaiju number 8?
Kafka has just punched the shit out of the ancient kaiju in Kaiju number 9's body, who just, gets up out of the rubble. And Kafka understands, like, of course, he's fine. Like, not only was he extremely strong back then, but also he's absorbed way more kaiju since then, and also has number nine's power and intelligence. So I have to defeat it here, because otherwise it's going to just cause worldwide devastation. It will continue to get stronger.
Yes.
So he says, let's do this. Jumps in to punch, sending the Meireki kaiju flying again through a bunch of the rubble. Their blows are causing massive shockwaves as they clash. The very buildings and ground around everyone within miles, it seems, is shaking, because it's not just we see like Mita experiencing it, but like even people like in bunkers far from the actual site of the battle are hearing like the ground shake. Eventually, Kafka gets grabbed by some sort of tendril, tossed into a building. The Meireki kaiju follows after him, and goes to launch this blast using kaiju number two's weapon against Kafka, and shoots it at the ground. And so Kafka immediately realizes, like, hey, stop that, and just kicks it up into the air very casually, and it explodes. However, the Meireki kaiju is so powerful, it could just spam that move and starts to do so. So Kafka tries to fly forward. He transforms like his feet to have jets in them to give himself extra speed. But there's also some sort of like tracking that they have. Each of them starts to trail after him. So he does something to kick one of the blasts into the others and cause a chain reaction so that they all explode harmlessly within midair. I think that's what happens. It's kind of unclear on this particular big 2-page spread.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, however, one of the blasts does catch him, and the Meireki kaiju just keeps on shooting even more. And
is it that he uses like rocket boosts from his feet to cause it? Like he does something.
Yeah, he does a kicking motion. There is a womb that extends from his feet, and then there's an impact, and it causes one to hit the others. And or maybe the shockwaves from the boost cause all of them to detonate. I don't know. So he does get caught, and eventually gets, anime barrage spammed, where like a smoke cloud appears and an explosion cloud appears because he's getting hit by them. Narumi and the others realize, like, shit, I mean, as strong as he is, this thing is impossibly strong. It's one of the strongest monsters that has ever existed. But Narumi realizes that what's frustrating more than any of that is that number 8 is a cut above even that. And of course, there was an explosion cloud in a Shonen Battle series. So Kafka comes out of the explosion cloud completely unharmed and punches the fuck out of the Meireki kaiju, and then just beats it down. Impacts start to appear in its body from all these punches that he is launching, driving it into the ground. And everyone's like, come on, finish this thing, finish it. But Kafka pauses in his assault, and he says, hey, extend the restricted area to a radius of 5 kilometers. He's coming out. And the kaiju's body is starting to morph. All that opening in kaiju number 9's body, where all the eyes were coming out of, is starting to pulsate and grow outward from the body.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll have like a real opinion on this until this fight's done. Because I still don't know if I'm supposed to be analyzing this as the final fight of the entire series, or if this is just another fight for Kaiju number 8. And right now it's just like, all right, cool. They're really, really strong and like can't go down too quickly. I guess we need to draw this out for a couple more weeks.
It's always good whenever we have, the big, fight happening, and we have to go like, well, I don't know how I feel about this because I don't know how it works within the context of the series as a whole. because whenever you reach that kind of point, it is probably a sign that something is not executing the way it was originally intended to. Like there is something that has kind of gone wrong here in terms of you're thinking about that instead of the excitement of the actual act itself.
I feel like there was supposed to be a real break between Kaiju number 9 and this fight. It just feels very strangely paced. I don't know, but also at the same time, it does feel very Dragon Ball, where you're like, we finally beat Majin. Oh, it's Super Boo. Nah, fuck. It's a whole other thing now, and it's gonna whoop our ass. Oh, we finally beat. It's Kid Buu now. What are you gonna do? It's so much more powerful now. You know, like, fuck me.
How strange would Dragon Ball have been if that were the way that the characters reacted to every single development? Going through the battle with the androids. Oh, we found the 2 androids. It wasn't actually them. It's two different androids.
Different one.
Different androids. There's a third one with them. So that wasn't even the rest of the androids. No. Hang on. No, there's this weird alien guy.
It's starting to eat them. Actually, it's getting stronger when it does that. Damn.
Oh shit. Oh well.
What are you gonna do? Yeah, I guess we shall see in a couple weeks. I have no idea when the next Kaiju number 8 chapter is, so maybe we'll find out next week.
Spy Family. It's chapter 112, part 2. I don't know why. I know that this is very much a very direct continuation of the previous chapter, but this is, again, full-length chapter. It happens.
I think the idea is it is just supposed to be kind of like that Bond, like the fire in the apartment building chapters. Like it is meant to be like, hey, this is too long for one, but this is not like just 2 parts of the same arc.
It's not a story arc.
Like I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, maybe we aren't going to see these 2 again, really. Like these are not just Anya's new best friends in her class. They might show up every so often kind of deal, but I'm like, I think this might just be like, yeah, remember Crown Boy and Booger Dude?
Crown Boy and Booger Dude.
I'm pretty sure I played a Sega Genesis game like that in the 90s.
Crown Boy and Booger Dude, also known as, Tertius and Booger Dude. I don't know if his name ever got stated in the previous chapter. So they are still squaring off in some sort of fight because Booger Dude realizes that Tertius has, his booger on his face, and he knows he's gonna get in trouble. Knows, quote unquote, he's gonna get in trouble if it's ever discovered. The 2 people that Ani was talking to before kind of look at her as like someone who, she's someone who gets things done. She saved everyone during the big bus kidnapping incident. So she just realizes, the people yearn for the help from the hero of the ages. And so she walks really coolly over to the 2 guys and thinks to herself like, yeah, I'm going to make a bunch of friends. And then one day my papa can clacka their parents. Bug their phones, I guess. So she very calmly says like, all right, everyone, let's keep our cool, gentlemen. And they both say like, oh, everything is fine though. And Tertius says, who is this little kitten? Best scurry away before you get hurt. All right, punch him in the face, please.
I don't hate him because I do believe he is not intending like kitten as a derogatory like way to put down a woman. I think he's just a weird little kid. I like he might just be like a dude who's just like, I call people kittens because they are so small in comparison to me and my crown-shaped hairdo.
But so Anya relates to Booger Boy like that she knows.
I'm trying
she knows.
This is now bothering me. What would I do if like a 6-year-old came up to me and called me toots? Like I'm trying to process it. Like how do you handle it?
How do I handle it? Yes, I'm sure I look like a guy who gets called toots all the time, Quinn.
I meant more rhetorically, but yeah, like Nick, if a child calls you toots, what would you do?
Well, assuming that I am also a child in this scenario, as Anya is the one who was addressed this way, probably say stop it and be upset about it and not get over it until years afterward.
Okay, because I wasn't making myself a child in this scenario, and my answer was going to be I grabbed them by the head and I dribbled them across the ground and dunked them until their head pops off.
I feel like I would handle it by just picking them up and just putting them on the top shelf somewhere. Just like sit there until your parents come and get you. So Anya has a great plan to get the booger off of Tertius's face, which is to go surprise attack and just try and grab for him. But she stops in the middle of it. Why? Why had she stopped her attack? It was the perfect opportunity. And Anya realizes, I don't want to touch some other kid's snot.
I like that it took to her till now to be like, ew, wait a minute, I touched the snot, gross.
Tertius starts to get really afraid because there has been an embellishment in Anya's accomplishment in the kidnapping scenario, which is that he thinks that she single-handedly beat the shit out of the kidnappers. So she thinks like, oh my god, she is a beast hell-bent on spilling blood. And Anya thinks like, I'm not that violent. You are, however, the one child we know of in this school who punched another student across a hallway before. So Tertius again calls her a kitten, and then says, the only way that I can get out of the situation is through chivalry. So he randomly has a flower. This is the type of guy who just has flowers, I guess.
He just has them.
He offers the flower to Anya and says, perhaps the thing of beauty might suit you more than blood. And he thinks, no woman could possibly resist this. Anya takes the flower and clearly has no idea what the fuck to do with it. She's just looking at it, and then she goes, a tool! There is a weird flashback that Tertius has of all the training that he has been given by his father, who he lives with in an actual castle with ramparts. And
he's being judged on his swordsmanship. We know guns exist in this universe.
Yep.
He's still just being trained on like fucking sword and board.
So he learned about his tendencies to like favor certain sides of his body when defending himself. He also flashes back to wanting to get nice and tall and strong, and then he drinks too much milk and gets diarrhea. All right, so he's a little wussy. Gotcha. But he's like, I'll do it. I must fight against her. And Anya comes in with the flower. It's all going to be okay. He dodges, and Anya reads his mind, and she looks kind of scary for a second. Just this very demented grin on her face as she snaps over to follow after him. And Tertius thinks like, oh, forgive me for meeting my end here. But suddenly, the flower drops from Anya's hand as the crick in her neck. Oh no! The one from Sleeping Weird in the previous chapter. And she freezes up.
Can that
drops the flower.
Happen to like 4-year-olds? I didn't think like their bones were so rigid that they could get like cricks in their neck. Like, I slept on it weird. Like, I feel like a 4-year-old, you can like curl them into a ball and like they could sleep like that and then just wake up the next day and then do cartwheels. Like they're basically Jello.
Fortunately, the flower flies from Anya's hand and hits the very tip of it, just pokes Tertius in the eyebrow, and he goes, ow. And he happens to brush the side of his face directly where the booger was, flicks it off, and so Booger Boy launches in and goes, evidence destroyed! And he crushes the booger in his hand, which makes like an explosion sound effect. Well, no, not an explosion sound, an explosion visual effect and a splat. So it's like he erases it from existence when in reality he's just smeared it all over his hand.
Well, here's the thing. We never really got to know this character too long, but we will know him more in the future as a member of Baroque Works, Mr. 5, who has explosive boogers, as we recall. So, once again, we're really working at that Jump Superstars crossover.
So One Piece takes in the future of Spy Family.
Yes.
Okay. He then has a random leaf on him. What is with both these boys randomly carrying bits of plants on them?
Their teacher is Poison Ivy.
God damn it. It's also crossing over with DC Comics.
Well, you remember how like DC did a crossover with Ruby? Like sometimes you just gotta mix the whole things around.
Didn't know about that.
Yeah, I think there's like 4 crossovers between Ruby and the Justice League. They're all owned by WB. It made sense at the time, I guess.
And also Mortal Kombat's in there too. So Mortal Kombat, So that crossover that Street Fighter did with Spy Family is like no, Mortal Kombat. That's the connection.
Well, Nick, you can start making these connections more and more if you start thinking about it. Street Fighter opens up a lot of venues, mostly fighting game venues, but they do have the Ninja Turtles and Marvel. That Marvel as well. Marvel and DC have never crossed over except for the many times that they have. So like that's a pretty big deal. McDonald's collaborations, that gets you Ronald McDonald. That kind of connects you to the whole fast food empire. Really, you can go wherever you want here.
The fast food extended universe.
The FFCU, which is not for the Fast and Furious cinematic universe like you think. It is the fast food cinematic universe, which I believe just entails the movie Mac and Me and I think Food Fight. I think those are the 2 movies.
Anyway, the booger's been destroyed. Booger Boy produces a leaf and says, "Oh, this was stuck on you the whole time." The teacher comes in before this can proceed any further. Tertius apologizes. Booger Boy goes over to Anya, pats her on the shoulder, and says, "You saved me. I owe you my life." And Anya says, "Don't touch me with your snot hand." She remembers.
Yeah.
Tertius goes over to Anya and says, "My thanks to you as well, dear kitten." And Anya says, "I am a human being."
I do, yeah, I really do like that where she's like, "Stop calling me a kid, I'm a person."
So he puts on this big display, he's very, very regally putting his hand over his heart and saying like, "I very nearly killed you both, for my fists pack strength enough to sunder boulders. Perhaps when I return to my kingdom, I shall award you one of our legendary jewels." And Anya just looks at him and says, "It's wrong to tell lies. Don't lie about shit that you don't have." And she's just like giving him advice like, if you just keep on telling lies, you're going to get really embarrassed eventually. And Tertius thinks like, she is unmoved by all of my bravado. She even returned my flower of love. Somehow she sees through my veil of affectations and yet protects my dignity by uttering not a word about it. So these are the children of Astania. Such great and strong creatures they are. Humans. Human beings. You need to fix your wording.
Human beings, yep.
So he thinks like, my kingdom cannot rival so grand a people. There is much for me to learn here. He's having all these thoughts in the front of the class. So the teacher's just like, sit down. I'm going to give you a teacher's pulse. After class, Becky greets Anya as she comes back from her class and she says, "How are things going?" Anya's got both the boys flanking her and then like also the other 2 she was talking to before behind them. So she's got an entire little friend group, including 2 guys that are like very sweet on her. Booger Boy's name is Freddie from Hamilton Hall. Tertius says another flower, which she says is now a true token of his love. And Anya just like, she's really enjoying it. She's like, "This is the power of Anya Forger. It's just secured world peace." And Becky thinks this is, scrumptious. Oh, you got 2 boys fighting for you. Oh, it's amazing how you did it all in 1 hour. And of course, I almost called him Demetrius. It's
Damien.
He looks behind and, "Oh no, guys have gotten your crush's attention."
It's very adorable because Anya is not old enough to use this to her advantage. She does, like, she's just very happy that, like, she feels like she was successful in everything.
I'm popular. I'm a hero.
But I don't think she realizes, like, she's not going to read Damien's mind to be like, "Oh, he's jealous. I should use," like, I feel like she's just dumb. She's not going to do that. Like, So I do think that is very cute. And I think it's also very funny that Anya shows up like an hour later and she's just got 2 boys wrapped around her finger already. And Becky's like, "What the fuck happened?" Like,
they are almost like like on her arms in the way that they're around her.
Yeah.
Also, I like that Freddy does not take the hint. He's continuing to pat her on the shoulder with the snot hand, even though she asked him not to.
I presume he would have washed his hand at some point. You had to hope, right?
Well, you know how children are, Quinn. Anyway, moving on.
That is true. World Trigger, Nick!
Oh my gosh, we finally got a chapter of World Trigger this year, Quinn.
All right.
Lovely.
What part of the away test are we on, Nick? Something 27, 29 even?
Away mission test part 41.
Does it hurt you at all to be like, if this series was able to do like a weekly schedule, there would still be a solid weekly year schedule of just this stupid away mission test.
Yeah. I'm going to summarize a big part of the beginning of this chapter because it is Suicide Squad going over their strategy for the day, which is to use a specific type of unit that is like it targets weak points. So and that's what they're doing. So it doesn't have a lot of firepower, except it's got Vital Strike. It's got, however, something that it's got a big weakness, which is that shields don't trigger the Vital Strike. So it's got an Achilles heel. That is the first third of this chapter. All right, moving on.
Yes.
HQ is meeting to discuss progress, and we don't see a big chunk of the combat simulation. They're like talking about it as like some of the results are coming in. So they're talking about like, all right, Murakami Squad is doing well. They start talking with Chief Kiriyama, who is kind of like going over the like creator tools that they have, and we're given a full introduction to him that he is a former member of Border, but he's their chief engineer, Ryoji Kiriyama. And you always need a character like this, Quinn. The guy who's just like, look, I'm just the guy who builds things. I don't know your protocols and all your like stuff like that. So he's calling everyone by like the nicknames that they had when he was a member of Border and everything. And they're like asking him like certain like supervising questions. And he says like, I'm not going to be doing much. That's going to be like these two. Anyway, and he kind of gives some predictions on certain things. It's really, I think, more important just that we're getting introduced to this guy. He doesn't say anything particularly interesting, except that he just makes the observation of efficiency versus knowing when to discard efficiency at the right time. And then he says, if you put raw effort against raw effort, the stronger side tends to come out on top. Instead, Suicide Squad has opted to work smarter instead of harder by scheming and making use of Mikumo's creative thinking. Fair enough.
Yes.
Kinuta is then asked about the combat phase of the exam, and he says that we're nearly done testing the additional rule, not that it was ever going to be a problem. And then, they say her name. I don't remember it. But, so they...
I wish I could help you, but there's so many fucking characters in this series, I don't.
So, she says, like, are you guys talking about the new rule that Captain Suo and Kitora suggested about putting operators on the field of battle? And she says that she's, really, really into that idea because, it grants, like, a big opportunity for it. Sawamura is her name. And, but they're, like, thinking about this in all sorts of different ways. And then Kinuta brings up, like, hey, Commander Kido, will we be proceeding with the final special assignment? And Kido says, well, it shouldn't have much of an effect on the combat phase. So yes, proceed as planned. Suicide Squad, we get mostly a summary of the way that the action goes for them during the combat simulations. Things go well for them in the early stages. They're up like 3-1-1. But then things start to go really badly for them because their Vile Strikes just like stop working. There are all sorts of different counters that people have for them. And Osamu's like really gets down himself after they have a number of losses because he's like, my strategy's just not working. And Katori says, it's not your fault. It's actually Murakami's squad's fault. Because the squads that faced Murakami's squad before now know about the Vital Strike strategy, so we weren't able to implement it properly. It's not that difficult to prepare against, and it doesn't require a lot of resources to prepare against. So because they ran into that, they now have a counter strategy against it. We couldn't catch them off guard.
Purely luck of the draw. Had we gone before Murakami's squad against them, our strategy probably would have worked.
So at the end of the day, they have 4 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw for the day, which is enough to be tied for 4th place. So, yeah, that's not bad at all. But they mentioned like, okay, Murakami's squad like did like go to the top with by just having the luck of the draw and implementing their strategy ahead of us. So they're at the top of the ranks there. In terms of overall ranking, Suwa Squad is still in second, and they're only a few hundred points behind. The gap was previously 900 points. Now it is 626, which means that they are on track. Their strategy is working. And they also observed that in the rankings for the day, Wakamura's squad, Rokuro, has made a huge jump. They've got like a lead of like 500 points ahead of Suwa's squad for the day. So, Suwa's curious about that because, like, hey, they didn't do too much better than us in The Sims, so it must be something else. And Osama's like, it must be from those delegated assignments. And of course, we know ahead of time that, yes, they were working on those, mostly because of Hughes not being able to read the Japanese and all that. So they're like, all right, so they must have done like that bulk submission thing anyway. But Suwa says, all right, we're just going to keep on holding the course. And he says, like, all right, dinner crew, you guys know what to do. So they head towards the pantry. Katori taps the door, and she goes, guys, the pantry door's not opening. And that is the note that we end on. But Quinn, I don't understand. They're preparing for an away mission. Why do they have to prepare to not have food? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Doesn't make any sense. I need, like, a fucking Freddy Krueger to pop out of that pantry or something like that. I need something crazy to happen. I have been like so starved for like yeah, good quality World Trigger. Like this is some, I feel like I am starving. I am the one sitting here being like, well, I'll subsist off of these away test mission scraps for now, but eventually I will need like a cheeseburger or something, a battle that can get me back into this.
Quinn,
don't curse me. I feel like there's supposed to be a part 2 to this fucking exam that's just actual fights, and I cannot tell you how much I don't want to see that.
Quinn, I was like vibrating when I finished this chapter, and I was like, oh my god, they got through an entire day of away mission stuff in one chapter.
It's done. There's no more battles. We're done with the actual battles. Now, there are a lot of post-battle essays still to write, and we'll have to see what everybody thinks about everyone's essay. But right now, we are moving closer to a conclusion.
There is something different happening. It's a different challenge that they have to deal with.
I have to assume this is very similar to what, like, yearning for the sweet release of death is like, where you're just like, anything else would be phenomenal, really. So, yeah, I guess we'll have to see what happens. Maybe, yeah.
Oh, my God. Let's just do anything else but World Trigger. Astro Royale! Oh, boy!
Oh, boy! Can't wait to see all the cool Yakuza things they do this chapter.
Chapter 43 is what Astro Royale says to all those people that were there for the first few chapters. Come back. Hibaru's fight against Tyra has just ended. He knocked him out of the ring during that big, like, double blast. His magnum thing knocked him out of the ring. At the same time, the explosion went off. Tarasu and Hiohiko and Hiohiko's sister all got away to safety, too. Hibaru gets to go to the finals. Hooray! He extends his fist towards Hachigu rather, in the stands. Hibaru's fist looks very old to me. Like that's a grown man's hand right there.
Well, Nick, every time you punch somebody, your fist ages by 1 day. And Hibaru has punched a lot of people, so it makes sense.
But it's the opposite hand that you punch with, because that's his regular.
Now, of course, this series exists in the same series as JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and you're like, well, that's crazy. Shouldn't Jotaro's fist be like withered ancient husks? But that is his stand punching all those times, so it's actually different. Now, you might be thinking, I know this also takes place in the same universe as One Piece. What about Luffy? He's, of course, made of rubber. Rubber doesn't wrinkle. Now, you might be saying, well, hold on a second. He's not actually made of rubber. He's just eaten a fruit that lets him turn into somebody who's made of rubber. In which case, I don't know anymore, Nick. I've run out of excuses. I don't know why his hand's so old.
I believe, Quinn, that it was established in the 2005 English theme song, he's made of rubber. So I think your point stands.
Fair. Very fair. Now, if we could... what would it be like if Gilbert Gottfried sang that theme song?
Yo, yeah, yo, yeah, yo.
I had to show that to someone recently.
Luffy!
I was like, you don't understand. He clearly just got paid for it and didn't get... He was like, $20 is $20! Yeah, yo, yeah, yo!
Dreaming, don't give it up, Luffy! Oh, boy. Anyway, the day is saved. The head of the clan that Tyra belongs to shows up and all right, so Shikaba teleports down to Tyra and says, hey, get up. And so Tyra stands up, and so he says, I don't need you anymore. And he draws his sword and slashes. But, oh my gosh, would you know it? Hibaru got in the way, and he blocked it with his punch hand.
His arm? That feels like the worst thing to be blocking attacks with. Like sharp-bladed weapon attacks.
I'll block it with my neck. It'll be okay. So Tyra says, like, hey, don't stop him, Hibaru. It's the last Yotsurugi standing gets to be the next boss, and I'm useless, so he's done with me. And Hibaru says, shut up! He's strayed from his principles and even risked his life for you, so don't abandon him, Shikaba! And then he goes to, he doesn't go to punch him. He goes to grab him with his non-punching hand. Don't understand that. So Shikaba teleports away, and he says, see you in the finals. And then Hibaru goes, why?
Is he in the tournament?
No!
I was going to say, I was like, I didn't think he was, like, there's another dude, I just forget who it is. They're going to beat up Tarasu so he can have, like, a big match. God, I hope Tarasu forgets to even use his shield in that match. Anyways.
Oh, man, he's really hitting me. If only I had a shield instead of this sword.
He's just holding the sword in front of him, and the dude's just punching him around it, and he's like, ow, ow, ow!
Ah, he's finally given me a weak point to exploit. Time to slash it with my shield! He's just the worst fighter in the world.
Everything we've ever been told about Tarasu was wrong. Like, his dad was like, he's the smartest member of our group, a real cool-headed guy. And, like, meanwhile, outside, he's, like, picking a fight with a pigeon over, like a butt of bread. He's like, give it to me, I want it. So, Tyra is unharmed now, so he says to Hibaru, Shikaba has his own burdens. Tendo visited us in the orphanage one time. Tendo and Shikaba are related. And it's time for a flashback. So, Yoshiki Tendo, the head of the Yakuza Association prior to Hibaru's dad, came up in a freaking wheelchair and says to Shikaba, your father is dead, and since I'm your grandfather, I'm your guardian now, so come and live with me. And so Shikaba, however, says, like, I'll only do it if Tyra can come with me. And so the two of them went and trained under the Tendo clan in martial arts and academics and stuff like that, but then they caught the attention of Kongo Yotsurugi, now the leader of the Japanese Yakuza Association. And so
They were instructed by Yoshiki Tendo. Gango is looking for a child to be the successor of the Utsurugi family. He is adopting talented children and selecting the next boss from them. Shikaba, let Kongo take you in so you can succeed him.
Nick, no! These are the bad Yakuza! The bad apples of the Yakuza, you could say.
The ones who give Yakuza a bad name, Quinn.
Oh,
so
disgraceful.
Shikaba agrees, and Yoshiki also says,
how could they besmirch the good name of organized crime?
Taira is instructed to support Shikaba, and then Yoshiki brings Shikaba real close and says, even after Kongo adopts you, don't forget you're still my grandson. Give me leadership of the Japanese Yakuza Association. And so Hibaru has learned all this important information, and Tarasu goes, I didn't know that happened. Thanks, Tarasu.
Cool.
Nice contribution. Cool. So Taira says, I know it was tough being stuck between the Yotsurugis and the Tendo. All I could do was stand by his side and support him. Hibaru, I wasn't able to help him in the end. Please, save him for me! And so Hibaru stoically stands and says, I want the Yotsurugi family to follow the noble path. So come back to us, Taira. Wah! Smacks him on the back. I'll save Shikaba for you. Quinn, it feels like we were supposed to learn something important, and then something important wasn't told to us in order to give us that feeling.
I don't know what you mean, Nick. We discovered that the bad Yakuza were trying to infiltrate the good Yakuza to take it over. And, I mean, I still don't know where Shikaba's loyalties lie. That's really the big question out of all this, isn't it?
Yeah. And can you believe it? The guy who he shares last names with is related to him.
Wild. This is the kind of twist you spend your whole career kind of working up to, you know, where you're just like, this is like when Sky Pia was like, and I signed this message, Goal D Roger, and everyone lost there. They were like, ah! This is the same thing here where we're like, Shikaba's connected to the other Yakuza dude. I don't know how to process this. This is blowing my mind, you know? A lot of people going crazy about this on Twitter, I presume, or practicing hate speech. I don't really know what they do over there anymore. So
it's kind of hard to tell. There's all these different like promoted accounts that are just trying to sell people crypto whenever you try and comment on an Astro Royale thread.
Oh gosh, yeah. Every time I try to post my cool Astro Royale theory, someone comes in and tries to sell me an NFT.
Okay. So,
Nick, let's kick at the soccer ball. That's
kick at the soccer ball.
That's our little intro sound bite for Embers. Kick at the soccer ball.
I don't know if that should stick.
And they kick at the soccer ball. They're not Italian. I don't know why they're doing that, but
none of them are Italian. The battle for the 8-team spots is continuing. It is halftime. That one that Inanaki scored has been the only goal thus far. So it's time for a huddle to regroup. Yukizuki is observing things, and she says that, this is really difficult because these guys are playing for a spot on the 8-team. What is the point if they can't beat other 8-team members? So it is basically, in her mind, a fair test of their abilities, even though they're currently on a lower rank than some of the guys that they're playing against. So, Yugo? Is that his name? Oh, gosh. Hang on a second. Hang on. I will find it. Yugo.
Yukai.
Yugi.
Yugi Moto.
Oh, man. He's really changed since.
Would Yugi Moto be good at playing soccer?
He would find a way to play a game that he was good at within the soccer.
He would be playing soccer, but he's like, we're going to play soccer roulette, and every time you kick the ball, a knife shoots into your heart.
Excuse me? Time to duel!
I go first, boom. And you're like, oh, he just wants to kill people now.
Takami has been, relaying this strategy based off of what Haitani said, that he could beat Inanaki, and so he says, you better not screw this up, as we get our chapter title, Chapter 5, No Man's Land. And Haitani says, you don't know who you're talking to. I'm the invincible Noboru Haitani. Time for a whole thing to happen. The entire team goes to attack instead of the defenders hanging back. So all their members are up past the center line. So Yukizuki's thinking like, what the hell are these guys doing? And, she's asked like, well, these guys are behind though. Like, so shouldn't they try and get more aggressive? But Yukizuki brings up like, the problem is Inanaki. So she brings up like, okay, let's say you've got a 2-on-1 matchup. You got who's got the advantage? The side with two guys, obviously. But why does the side with two guys have an advantage? She points out like, okay, so if you have a 1-on-1 matchup, all you got to do is control that one person. If you get past him, that's kind of it. But if another person is there that they can pass the ball off to, then you've got to take two people into account. However, what if a player can't pass at all? What if player A tries to pass the ball to player B, and then a defender that he doesn't see just snatches away from him? What then? They can't pass. So all they can do is just hold on to the ball. And in that case, the extra numbers advantage is gone because they can't pass the ball around. And if they do lose the ball, there's no one to defend behind them. And of course, these guys are playing with open goals. They don't have goalies in this matchup. So there's just this no man's land behind them. So Inanaki gets the ball kicked to him in the no man's land, and everyone's behind them. And then we get a flashback to explain that the big plan that Takami came up with is let the other team have a counterattack just like this. Haitani accuses him of being an enemy spy, which is such a dramatic way of phrasing that. But Takami says, like, look, guys, Kamigai is really good at positioning the defenders on the other side. We can't break through if we don't coordinate together. But if Inanaki's there is an opportunity for us. We'll give them a counterattack, and then as they shift into offense, the snake will move into the open field, and then he won't be in the opposing field to defend, which means that we'll have an opportunity to go on offense and score. Of course, this all relies on Haitani being able to do it. He starts to go like, I definitely understand this plan. Yes, let's do it. But one of the other first years points out, it's like, no. This is pointless. Forget scoring a goal on them. If the opponent is counterattacking, they've got the ball. And Takami says, no problem. He's got to run across half a wide open field. It'll only be a few seconds, but while he is doing that, Inanaki won't be able to hide. And in that instant, in the 0.1 seconds it takes him to wind up for the scoring kick, if we can react in time, no. If you can catch up on sheer reflex.
I love that we've made Aegon from fucking High Shield 21 into the hero of the story.
Yeah, the way it was always meant to be, obviously.
The way stories should be told.
Haitani has, with his speed of light reaction time, caught up to Inanaki before he can kick the ball. And Inanaki's like, what the hell? But he wasn't just waiting for me to be here. How did he catch up to me? And Takami says, look, we're going to shift to counterattack and then respond. If you do that, it's too late. But you don't have to think. The very instant your brain registers it, you are in motion. So Inanaki's like, well, that's fine, though, because I don't need to score from right here. I'll just use my... Oh, the guy I need to pass to is blocked off because Takami is marking Kamigai.
Yes.
And Takami's like, you're the only one who can predict Inanaki on your side, aren't you? And Kamigai's like, you're paying attention. Yeah. So that leaves Inanaki with no options. He's just got to beat Haitani straight up, and that doesn't happen. Haitani steals the ball from right in front of him, and he's kind of pissed off too because like, stop ordering me around. Like, you're not allowed to do that. I was gonna steal the ball anyway. Shrimp. And he punts the ball back to the other side of the field. I love how everyone's like, that's a horrible pass.
I legit thought he kicked it out of the stadium. Like, the way it was first shot, I was like,
home run!
Did that go into the parking lot? Like, I think you're done, dude.
But Takami is totally prepared for this, and he perfectly catches the ball off of his foot, and he says, this time, I swear, I'll score for sure. And everyone is trying to get back into defense while he has the ball as the chapter ends with him preparing to shoot.
There we go. Should be an exciting conclusion to this little matchup, and I enjoy seeing our leads work together. They're like a fun dichotomy between them.
Yeah, I feel like a big part of me wanted to just have like just score the goal at the end of the chapter, though. Just like have it all happen in one go. It feels like it ends on a slightly awkward note, but there's a lot of really good stuff in this. I will say that thus far, all signs indicate that Ember seems to be doing very, very well.
Okay, that's great.
I did a bit of like curiosity stat diving on how series tend to do on Manga Plus, because you can see they week to week like update what's like getting hits and everything, and there are a few people who have been tracking it like week to week to say like, here's what this did, here's what this did, here's what this did. Chapter 5 is generally speaking where the views kind of plateau, where like everyone who has been like checking it out decides whether or not they want to keep reading it, and then the views are almost frozen at that point. It's kind of crazy to see how consistently it happens. There are exceptions, like Astro Royale dropped off more, and Ichi the Witch stabilized sooner because fewer people dropped off of it than normal.
Yes.
But speaking of which, Embers is like doing the best of any series that has debuted in Jump in the past year outside of those two. So, a good sign, I would say.
Nick, are we finally going to get our sports series in Jump again?
I'm not saying anything yet.
Nope, Nick.
Things are trending positively.
I'm putting everything in on this. I can't wait. I'm gonna start getting soccer jerseys. I'm gonna start learning all the lingo. I'm gonna start having favorites. It's gonna be a real good time. In the meantime, though, we gotta talk about Hima-Ten, number 32, day off, and end of term ceremony. The first time I saw this, I was like, oh, Honoka has a really cute younger sister. And I was like, never mind, that's just her short friend.
She is very small.
The first time I saw it, I was like, what an adorable little sister. That seems like a fun... And I was like, nope, that's her friend. Never mind.
Mayu has to be like 4'3" or something.
Has to be, yeah. Honoka is hunched over and still towers over her.
Yeah, it's number 32, day off and end of term ceremony. There is that cute color page of the two of them, and then before we get into the chapter proper, there is a little bonus page that happens where we break the fourth wall to have Himari being like, oh, look, they look so cute on the color page. And then Kana comes out and says, like, why don't they make one of my pinups the color page? Takes off a towel and she's in a bikini. Like, all right. Well,
look, you got your thing? Go for it, I guess. Whatever.
Meanwhile, Iamori was out in the rain with Himari in the previous chapter, and he has a bit of a fever now. But it's the end of term ceremony supposed to be happening today. School's out for the summer, and Iamori's sick. And Kana gets really upset when she learns that Iamori is not there. The teacher told Kana told Honoka rather, and Himari that he was sick. And all the girls, as they exchange this information, are like, it's my fault. It's my fault that he's sick. I've been asking too much of him. It's my fault. What if it's all my fault?
I love all of these girls. It's just like, yep, how do I make this my fault? And I'm like, yeah, I know this. I know how you do this. This is a fun... I can tell you guys. Do you want help? I can help you figure out how things are your fault that you have zero connection to.
I mean, and they all have self-blaming sound effects. Kana's is "Kanat good," Himari's is "Himai mistake," and my favorite is Honoka's "Hono ono." But Iamori also has a cough, it turns out, so he's just resting in bed, and he's like, God damn it, summer break starts tomorrow, and I'm stuck sick at home. But he reflects on the fact that, a lot's been happening with him recently. The fact that, Kana seemed to hint to him that she had, a crush on him. The looks that Himari has been giving him recently. Honoka being really, really happy to take, a summer course with him. And he thinks like, yeah, I mean, like, I barely used to talk to girls at all last year, and now I'm talking to them all the time. And maybe that's just all cut up with me. So in a sense, it is all the girl's fault, because Iamori's body just can't take all of these hormones that he refuses to take notice of, I guess.
Dude, it must suck to be like genetically predisposed to oh yeah, in your family, too many bitches is an issue. Like, it can really fuck you up. So you're gonna need to try to like limit your women intake.
You're gonna need to be gay. I'm sorry, it's a medical requirement for you to be gay.
Joe Biden's America, absolutely, yeah. Doctors walked in and told you you're gonna have to be gay all the time.
There is the door buzzes, so Iamori answers it. But oh no, the door doesn't buzz. The door opens, and hey, it's Iamori's dad, and he looks like hot dad Iamori, basically.
It's very strange to me because I was like, oh, I don't think we're supposed to see you for another 130 chapters. You're supposed to be like a big surprise later on. Or in the case of My Hero Academia, you just don't show up. So like the fact that he just casually showed up and you're like, oh yeah, isn't that? Sometimes your other parent could just show up in these series.
Yeah, he just immediately gets Disney'd added and tragic death off screen. So yeah, he comes by and he's like, hey, yeah, your mom told me that you were sick, so I'm gonna help you out. And he looks around, he's like, you've been taking good care of the place. And he says, I'm glad that I taught you all my housekeeping skills. It's made your job as a cleaner a piece of cake, huh? Maybe I should switch careers and start cleaning houses too. And Iamori's like, who would hire you? You've got a 5 o'clock shadow. And like, I kind of understand his point. It sort of sucks a little bit. But on the other hand, I feel like, anyone who hires this man, you're going to have to watch out for them because they're going to try and make him be their husband.
Uh-huh.
A man who looks like that and is really good at cooking and cleaning will need to watch out. So Iamori's dad starts prepping for a meal, makes salmon rice gruel. Here, get this in you. Feel better. Also, I hear you've been popular with the ladies lately. Oh boy, Iamori was very prepared for this conversation. Iamori's dad has been getting the word from his mother about it, and he just says like, hey, so you have a favorite? Man talk! So Iamori does think about Honoka and thinks like, I mean, what if I were to tell her that I liked her during summer break? I mean, like, I didn't really have like a good chance to do so before when we weren't really talking to each other much, but now we have gotten closer. But if we do go out, I haven't thought about what happens after that. And there is a moment where he has the very sinful imagined thought of Honoka asking him to call her by her first name since they're boyfriend and girlfriend, and he gets freaks out about that. But then he thinks about Kana and thinking about her saying like, well, don't stop saying that you're cheering me on so much because you're going to make Honoka jealous. And then he thinks about Himari and how she might say like, oh, well, you're dating her, so you can't work as my house cleaner now. And as far as like imagined problems of a teenage boy go, that's not unrealistic. to think that that could happen in terms of what we know about the girls' personalities and how they're very like conscious of each other and of Iemori. So, yeah, that kind of seems like it could happen, and it could be something to be worried about. So I appreciate that. But he also admits, like, I mean, I don't even know if she would go out with me, so I'm getting ahead of myself. So Iemori's dad then says, like, hey, you know, like, you're getting close to, you know, the summer of your second year now. So, you know, this could be a chance for you to get some good experience in. And Iemori's like, what are you talking about? He says, well, if you want to, you know, have your own house one day, being popular with the ladies right now can't hurt, because after your dreams come true and you get a place of your own, you need a leading lady. I don't know of many people who talk like that, but
his dad's like an old-time Hollywood movie star kind of guy.
You need a leading lady of your own. You need a hot potato. You know what I mean?
That's what they said. You know, I just finished watching Singing in the Rain, and a couple times during that movie, they refer to people as hot potatoes during it. They're just like, hey there, doll face, you hot potato, get out of here.
Yeah, Iemori's like, you know, I do want to have like a great house, and I want to make it into a warm home. Yeah. And he like looks kind of meaningfully at his dad's wedding ring. He's like, yeah, I guess kind of like I do want that. Now the doorbell rings. I love this brief moment where Iemori's dad like looks at like the camera and he goes, you get it.
When he sees 3 high school girls all with little gift bags in front of them, like, I'm like, why don't you get it, son? I don't think this is meant for me.
And of course, it's Kana, it's Himari, it's Hanoka, and they've all got little bags with them. And Iemori's like, what are you doing here? And we get a chance to see how much taller Iemori is than the 3 of them. And so just to give further perspective at how fucking short Mayu is, how much taller Hanoka is than her. So they said, like, hey, you didn't get to go to the end of term ceremony, so we brought all your stuff. And Himari's like, yeah, the class rep for me, because, you know, like, I sit next to you. We were both asked to bring it. And Hanoka's like, but it was too much to carry alone, so we got Kana's help too. Yes, I'm sure neither of you could have carried a bag under your other arm.
I was like, we see what's in all of the bags later on, and you're like, how would these possibly have been too heavy to all of you carry? It's like a magazine, a drink, and like a jelly of some kind. Like any one of you could have carried all 3 of those gifts.
Each of them are very concerned with him, so yeah, they've gotten him a get well gift, and Kana's like, try to guess which one is which. And Himori's like, well, this magazine is yours because you're in it, and so I guess this bougie health drink must be from Yoshino, and this jelly is from Kana.
In his defense, he does not say aloud that it is because she is in this one. He mentally says that. But I do love that he immediately is like, well, this one's yours, the bougie health drink is from Hima, and then by default, this must mean it's from Hanukkah. And Himari's just like, Kana, you fucked this whole goddamn game up. Why did you buy him a fucking fashion magazine? Like, who the fuck would think?
It's not going to be anyone else but her, even if she wasn't in it.
I didn't buy him mascara for that same goddamn reason. It would have kind of given me away.
I got him a make dust go away implement.
A duster?
Well, no, like, never mind.
Okay.
So yeah, they all wish him well, and then they don't like overstay their welcome. They're just like, we brought you your stuff, feel better, and they wave goodbye. But as they're leaving, of course, Iemori's thinking about his dad said about having a leading lady in his life. Goes back inside. His dad asks him, like, hey, so what was with them? Iemori, of course, says, like, oh, they brought me some things. I'm going to take your advice, Dad. He thinks, I'll just enjoy summer break for now. So he's trying to, you know, just be himself.
He's keeping it casual. Well, that was a reserved and controlled chapter of Hima-Ten. I enjoyed it very much. time to go to the booty-tastic chapter of Sidcraft Loves the Mystery, Case 14, The Twilight Cat Scopes the Enemy Situation. We open, Nick, in the action. Lulu Chat Noir is in the middle of another daring heist as the Phantom Thief, and she is run into Sidcraft, Souffle, and Elio. And he's like, all right, Phantom Thief, I am here to bring an end to your thievery. And Lulu laughs to herself. She's like, today is the day that I win. For now I know, Mr. Detective, you're weak to the ways of seduction. And she does a big pose. She pushes out all the parts you're supposed to push out. And she's like, I will entice you with my charm. And today will be the day I successfully execute my job. And
she looks very comfortable in that pose.
Yep. And she says, how do you like this? And no one says anything really until Souffle's like, what's up with the weird pose? And we can see, in case you've missed it, guys, the vacuum sealed pants are back. Like, this shit's unheard of. Like, to the point where it'd be like, I don't even know how you would move without that being actively painful. But whatever. Lulu does not take this news well, and she kind of falls to the ground. She's like, wait, the pose that I spent this whole week diligently practicing is weird? So she throws down a smoke bomb and leaves. As she's like escaping, there's a moment of like, well, good job, Sid. You still made her flee just by talking to her. Always a master. And Sid's like, for a moment I almost thought she was trying to like seduce me or something like that. Thank goodness she wasn't. Like he's being like less whiny loser in this, because he's just like, I would have to have been a real idiot to assume she was trying to hit on me there. Lulu's like, well, as she hang glides away, she's like, I failed. But even after I discovered his weak point, seducing someone's really hard. So, and we get a little reminder that's like, yeah, Lulu is extremely socially awkward.
I want to take this narrator out into a back alley and shove them in a dumpster.
To remind you, Nick, you could be, I understand, you're smart, you remember all these details, but what about, little Timmy, or I guess this is Japan, so like, little Yuji, who's like, I don't know. I don't know. I read this and I forget what this character's about. I just know she has the big boobs, and it reminds you, you're like, hey, she's socially awkward. She thinks I need to talk to somebody. Next chapter, she's like, you must teach me an efficient way to bring a man to his knees, Romance Sensei. And she is talking to Souffle. Also, her breasts are so big, they literally do not fit into the frame. They cover over the side and even invade up into the next frame. Yeah. There is a great moment where Souffle is like, hey, Lulu, you've really been coming to Sid's office a lot recently. Got a lot of free time on your hands? And Elia's like, you show up here a lot of the time too, Miss Souffle. So, Souffle agrees to take her on, and immediately you turn the page and we see what she means. Because at first I was like, oh, is this like a classic miscommunication between the two, where she's like, I need a way to bring a men to my knee, or to their knees. And Souffle's way of interpreting that was like, well, I'm going to teach you all the best takedown moves. And you think based off that is kind of what she's going for here. But they also do just talk about romance as well. So I guess she recognizes it's also a little bit erotic as well, which begs the question, why would you start doing this? But who cares? I
think definitely, like, for this maneuver, Souffle seems to be interpreting it literally. And Lulu seems to be reading into it more, in terms of like, oh, I see. You need to be aggressive when seducing someone.
Yes.
Good form on the rear naked choke with body scissors, by the way.
Exactly.
Trapping the arms with the legs, very good. Yeah.
Elio is walking by and is like, it feels like they're doing a whole lot of stuff here, but you know what? That reminds me. And she asks, do either of you have a boyfriend? And Souffle goes, Miss Lulu, a young assistant Elio is saying that he wants you to do the move I just did on him. And I think that's very funny. Souffle is like, well, I don't have one at the moment, but believe it or not, there is someone I'm supposed to marry. We made childhood promises when we were kids. Sid returns at this point, and their practice session. These poor fucking girls really don't feel like they're sharing any brain cells. It's like one brain cell shared between them because they're now just all into the romance thing. And also, Souffle's laying on the table. Like everyone else, I think maybe they're on the ground. I think is what's going on. I thought they were on a table, but I think they're on the ground. He comes back home and he's just like, "Hey, you guys sure have gotten close. Why are you here? I guess I'll start with you, Inspector. You work for me. I don't know why you're here or you, so one of you has to go first." Souffle's like, "We have received," and she drops a huge stack of papers. She's like, "all of these calling cards from the Phantom Thief Mist Cat, and I'm at a loss how to deal with them all." And Lulu's like, "No, I've only sent like 4, maybe 5 at most. There's no possible way." And Sid just starts going through them. He's like, "This is a fake. This is a fake. This is a fake." And his reasoning basically is he's like, "Well, all the fakes deviate too much from the profile. The Phantom Thief only ever strikes rich targets or people who have done like wrongdoing, criminals, that sort of thing. And she always donates what she gets to charity." And none of that I feel was in most of these letters because he's, you can see like one of them's like, "If you don't have the ransom to me by this time," or whatever. So he just kind of notes, he's like, "Stealing is never acceptable and I'll need to catch her one of these days. But strangely enough, I can't bring myself to feel indifferent towards her. If she had no choice but to stray from that path of phantom thievery, then I'm sure she must have led a lonely life." And he also guessed how many actual ones she sent too. He's like, only these 4 are real, and matches up with what she was expecting. Lulu spaces out at this moment. She's like, "Oh, Elio sure is taking his time. I'll go check on him." So she's just trying to kind of get out of the situation. She opens the door, and Elio's kind of just sniffing Sid's jacket, just going full nose into it, just really getting a big whiff of it.
At least it's just the coat.
Yes. And Lulu just kind of closes the door, and then she's like, "Oh, hey, what's this notebook that's on the ground?" And Souffle's like, "Oh, sorry, that's my notebook. Oh, also, there's a photo in it of the boy that I gave a promise to marry one day." And Lulu looks at it and is like, "Well, this is very clearly Sid." Souffle just says, "That's the one I promised to marry. Sigh, but I don't really know anything. I don't remember what he looks like or his real name or anything like that." But Lulu's very clearly
Look at how cute Souffle was as a little kid. Look at that cute haircut.
Yeah. Lulu's like, "This is very clearly the detective."
It's very obviously him. I've seen what this boy looked like in the bathtub. I know
Yes.
that is Sid Kraft.
So what you're telling me is Miss Elio is pretending to be a man because she's actually in love with Mr. Detective. And Souffle's first love, who she promised to marry one day, was the detective in his youth. What the fuck is going on? Basically, she realizes there is like so much connection between these two. And she's like, this isn't good. Because if he does become romantically involved with somebody, he'll probably stop being such a wiener when it comes to like any kind of sexual stuff at all. And I need that weakness. So my only real chance is to butt in before them, basically. And she literally forces herself between Elio and Souffle. And she's like, before that happens, I'll make my move. And she kind of reaches towards Sid. And she's like, first, you assertively approach the person. And then right into the dive. You do the move that Sensei taught me. But before she can, she passes out because this is all just too stimulating and too much for her. She has a fever now. It's real bad. And we end the chapter in a little joke that she's got like a heating pad on her now and she's being taken care of. And she's like, I swear I'll seduce you next time, detective.
Next time, Sid Kraft. You will taste these titties, Sid Kraft.
And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach to have her just like knowing everyone's secrets and knowing what everyone's got going on. But she's also the one who will just like keep all the secrets because she kind of has, a reason to, being that she is quote unquote Sid Craft's enemy.
Yes.
So it wouldn't benefit her to reveal this information to the others. I do hope that we continue to see like how that information that she has will affect her behavior and her actions in the future. That being said, the framing joke of this chapter is stupid. Let's move on.
Yes.
It's Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi, chapter 34, Jackjo's Past. Last time, Jackjo and Nahan managed to combine their abilities and Stabinated. It's a very weird name, and I can't memorize the name of the demon lord that they're fighting against.
Not Yoko Ono.
It's not Yoko Ono.
Yep.
Almost. Yoko Ono is in this chapter, but all the other characters are not Yoko Ono.
Yes.
So, Akari is very, very pleased to see how much Nahan and Jackjo have grown, and then he says like, "Miss Akari, we actually beat," and then the demon lord just gets up, and is like, "Is that the best you can do?" and stomps the ground, sending Nahan and Jackjo flying. And he says, "I'm disappointed, Jackjo. You've bored me. It's time we ended this." Does a cool pose where he's got a different weapon in each of his many hands, and power just starts coursing out of him. His power is like bending poles and shattering traffic lights. It's so intense. And then he just does the, like dash through slash on Nahan, cuts him with a bunch of different weapons, and then just grabs him by the head and slams him into the ground. Goes to finish him off, and fortunately, Yoko Ono gets in the way. She intervenes. Akari helps to get Nahan and Jackjo out of the way, while Yoko Ono blocks it with her axe. And so she says, "Yeah, I never did know when to give up." Unfortunately, their opponent is too strong. He just unleashes an ability that sends out black energy coursing in all directions, which not only gets Yoko Ono out of the way and puts her down for the count, but it also gets Akari. So they're not able to help Nahan and Jackjo at all at this point, essentially. The Demon Lord mocks Jackjo, saying, "Weren't you supposed to protect them? How laughable! No wonder you're so weak. How else could a soft-hearted Demon Lord who longed for human friends end up?" And of course, Nahan and Jackjo have no idea what the hell he's talking about. And he says, "You are quite the odd one, Jackjo. You never fed on human souls. You didn't care for dominion, but your strength was the real deal. You established yourself as the 5th Demon Lord through power alone. I admired you, and so I sought to surpass your rank through nothing but my own power as well. But one day, you..." And we see the original appearance of Jackjo, who has a much, much less memorable design than current Jackjo. Just, a dude with horns, basically.
Yep.
And he just says, like, "Hey, ever heard of this thing that they call in the human world manga? Manga?" And I love the question that he asks is it strong?
That's such a great line for a character to have. You could truly define an entire character off of just like, "Manga? Is it strong?
Can you eat it?
Will I defeat it in battle?"
A gazebo? Truly a formidable opponent it must be. And Jackjo says, "No, but it's hilarious though. And they got this stuff called karaoke and bowling and Yokurabaku says, what could possible be more enjoyable than a duel to the death?" And Jackjo's like, "I mean, humans have other things to value besides strength. I'm kind of jealous of them. I want to try living in the human world and making friends." And Yokurabaku thinks that's insane for a demon lord to say. And then he says, "Besides, I'm your friend." And Jackjo says, "Yeah, but you're always trying to kill me." He's got a point. But 10 years ago, Yokorobaku says, Jackjo vanished. He says to avoid being detected by exorcists and demons, you reduced yourself to your weakest form. What a joke. This is all that came of you throwing away your power. And Jackjo, still wrapped around Nehan's body, says that he's always been worried about what kind of demon he used to be, and now he's tearing up because he understands that he wasn't an evil demon lord. He admits that the nicer everyone was, the more scared I got. What if the past me had been some kind of ruthless demon king, and when my memories returned, I ended up hurting everyone around me? What if I couldn't stay friends with Kiyoshi and Nehan? And Nehan says that he has also kind of had these thoughts. He had a conversation with Kiyoshi, we see in flashback, about, hey, what would I do if Jackjo got his memories back and he ended up attacking everyone? He's like, I wouldn't be able to stop him. I wouldn't be able to do anything on my own. And then he says to Kiyoshi, I would feel bad because you saved him. You spared him. So Kiyoshi says, like, look, it's definitely possible he was evil. And in the worst case, if that happens, I would have to exorcise him, maybe. But my instincts are saying Jackjo is going to be just fine. And that's just kind of it. So Nehan's kind of like held on to that faith, and he says to Jackjo in the present, why were you worried about something stupid like that? That's all the more reason that we can't just die here. And Jackjo says, I've got no doubts anymore. I've been afraid of what would happen if I lost control, but now I'm going all out! Because he wasn't going all out before, Quinn.
He was.
That's very important. And he's got more shadow arms. And now he's quaking with power, which Yokorobaku is reacting to. Jackjo's arm reaches out, grabs a pole behind Yokorobaku, pulls himself in for this really rapid stab, which nicks Yokorobaku's head. And he punches him with his other arm. And Yokorobaku's like, ow! He gave up his power! I won't abide a power born for the sake of others! You're a loser! You have friends! Fuck you! Gets a weapon in each hand, goes to attack, gathers up a bunch of energy. He slashes Jackjo and Nehan again. They start coughing up blood, but Jackjo and Nehan gather their power together, and I do really love the visual here with Nehan's arms holding the spear, gathering energy in it, and Jackjo's arms are additionally adding power to it in this like super Kamehameha kind of pose. And they declare, people are at their best when they're fighting for others. And they completely rip through Yokorobaku with the demon-banishing lance sphere and blow him in half, essentially. Immediately after that, the fusion ends. Jackjo slips off Nehan's body. The two of them collapse together, and then they fist bump each other. Congratulations. Fight over.
I like the visual of Jackjo, like, literally, like, sliding off of Nehan's body, I think is a pretty cool one. Yeah.
Fun fight. I think that it is kind of, I don't know. Isn't that convenient, that Jackjo was just always a good guy. It feels like it just kind of like makes him a less interesting character to go with that. Because the important thing really should just be is like what the kind of person he is now, more than the type of person he was in the past. I like he had this worry over the type of person he was, but it's like, oh, well, isn't it convenient now that you just don't have to worry about that anymore? It's like, all right, well, I guess that dramatic tension is just gone. Thanks.
It's a little bit like that, yeah. And I think I'm still trying to like get into a mode of being hyped for this series. In my mind, it's still perpetually ending. I know that's not really the case anymore, but like in my mind, this series is just like gonna end in 6 chapters or something like that. So I just like can't like I haven't yet like gotten back into like a buy-in for the series, I think, yet.
It certainly doesn't help that, like I said, like a dramatic tension thing just got resolved. It feels like it could have been a long-term thing for a character. So, but we got Marriagetoxin next, Quinn.
Marriagetoxin.
Chapter 119. Chinatsu is been upset while watching over oh gosh, I have forgotten her
Nabe.
name. Nachan, yeah, Nabe. So,
and two things on this first page. One, for all you little feet freaks out there, you
wasn't gonna say anything.
You gotta be going crazy for it. But two, again, this takes place in the same universe as Blue Blocks. This is actually Chinatsu grown up. She gave up basketball. She has a real big interest in police tape now, and that's just kind of what they do.
Yeah, and Taiki's dead. That's why she became a protector.
Well, he's not dead. He's part of the Badminton clan, which is essentially a social death of some kind. They are, of course, the clan that kill people via badminton. It's not a very big clan, but Taiki is definitely going to be leading it into a new era, so to speak, prominence.
An era of badminton.
Mm-hmm. That's why they call it badminton. It's because you could do bad things with it.
Bad.
Yeah, it's badminton.
I just came up with a stupid thing.
But you gotta say it. You can't. You gotta share it with the class.
As an assassin, have I committed atrocities? Yes, I admit it.
Exactly. So, guys, if you can all put in some money, we have a GoFundMe.
We have a Patreon.
I was thinking we have a GoFundMe where we're going to basically create a pitch, and we're going to bring this to Jomyaku and be like, hey, I know you normally don't do this, and I don't think you legally can, but we have some great lines already written for you.
Anyway, Chinatsu is, just kind of like gives us like the summary of her rapid fire failure during the battle between Gero and Kirito, where she rushed away from Nabe in order to assist him, and then when she did that, he ended up protecting her instead. And she says, like, yeah, Kirito, yeah, he's an ally, it's all okay, but I didn't protect anyone at all. Maybe I'm just not cut out to be a protector. And she gets this full page spread of her just like clutching her head while tears fall from her eyes. And she says, like, I feel so ashamed that like I can't even bring myself to face Gero right now. And then she realizes very awkwardly, like, oh, I just like confided her.
I've been speaking aloud this whole time.
Yeah. And she's like, yeah, I mean, like, she seems nice, but she used to be the head of the Arima family, which produced horribly fierce fighters, and I'm just this nobody who can't even do her job as a protector. She's probably just going to rip me into shreds and just toss me aside because, of course, she's feeling very, very down on herself and just thinks that everyone else is going to see her that way. Nabe, however, has grasped onto the fact, very obviously, she's so cozy.
Could you be struggling with love?
She's blushing like she is 12 years old.
It's adorable. I love her pulling up her little covers to her face. She's like, it sounds like you're struggling with love. Like, oh, sweetest old lady.
Chinatsu's like, no, I'm not saying that. But Nabe points out, like, but your body moved before you could think, didn't it? That means that Hikacha is somebody you hold very dear in your heart. And Chinatsu's like, no. And then Nabe's like, oh, really? Well, then how about our Kiricha? He may be young, but his prospects are very promising. She just wants to have a ship. She doesn't really care who it is. And then Chinatsu, I feel like this just like shocks her out of it because she's like, it's such a like no for her that she's like, oh, just immediately stops being embarrassed. Kirito bursts into the room and he says, I heard you call my name and thought it was an emergency. And Nabe, of course, is like, you worry too much.
I love that he has theoretically been hearing everything that's happened in this conversation, but has only taken knowledge of it because he heard his name, like almost as though he has like a censored, like dialed up for sensitivity just for his name. And he's like, I heard Nabe-chan and nothing else, or Kirito-chan and nothing else.
That is actually a thing that people have.
Really?
Yeah, there is like a thing that your brain kind of filters out stuff that, like if you're in a crowd and you are like trying to engage with someone, there's noise happening all around you and your ears sense it all, but your brain automatically filters the information so that you're not focusing on every single part of it. But if someone says your name, it triggers something that kind of like lets you know, like, oh, someone is like giving me important information because they're saying my name, and it turns your attention towards that. I forget the exact name of the phenomenon, but it is a thing that.
Well, if you can't remember the name of it, Nick, you get to legally name it after yourself. So we're gonna call this the Nicholas Freeman phenomenon.
I don't want that.
Okay, well, I'm going to take it then, and it's going to be called... No, I'm going to call it the Toro from Jackie Chan Adventures phenomenon.
Toro?
Wasn't that? Yeah.
Toru.
Sorry, yes, Toru.
Yeah.
Actually, Toro from Jackie Chan Adventures. Everyone's like, well, there was a Toru, and I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Shortly after Kirito shows up, Gero also shows up, and he's like, is everything okay, Akakura? And Chinatsu immediately is like, ah! She doesn't want to deal with him right now. She like blushes, she covers her mouth, she turns away, and Gero's just like, did something happen? And she can't look at him. She covers her face, like, everything's fine. Because, Nabe's just put in her head the idea that maybe she has like a massive crush on Gero.
Yeah.
Kirito thinks all these people are weird.
And he's right. He is right. Everyone else in this room's a little bit of a freak.
Nabe says, it's almost time. I'll be going into a long trance, so I'll be counting on you in the meantime. And Kirito says, yes, anyone who comes after you will answer to me with their life. And Nabe closes her eyes and goes silent and still. And Chinatsu thinks like, oh, she fell asleep. And Kirito explains she is not sleeping. She's tempering herself. This is the core technique of the Arima family, the very marrow of the Iron Clan, the tempering trance. We visualize the strongest opponent we've ever fought and fight numerous battles with them over and over in our minds. And so Gero understands like, wow, so they go through physical training, but they're also constantly, even when asleep, basically, mentally training. Kirito says something
pretty cool.
It is a cool idea. Kirito immediately makes it stupid because he says, I believe that in the course of her lifetime, Naibacha has gone into a trance well over 100 million times.
That's like 7 times a day. Like, at least, right?
No!
Nick, can you do this math? How many...
If we assume that Nabe has been doing this for 100 years, which I think is just a nice round, estimation that we can make,
sure,
which given the information we have, probably makes sense. That is 1 million times a year. 1 million times a year is 2,739 times a day, which is 114 times per hour, which is 1.9 times a minute. As in, every 30 seconds, you're going, hang on, I'm going into a trance. What the fuck is this?
She's just constantly having her little fights. What are you going to do? What? God forbid a woman have hobbies, Nick.
If you're going into a trance 100 billion times across 100 years, that means you're just occasionally going, fight, and then you're moving on with your day and it's doing nothing. Fuck this 100 million times nonsense. Kirito, you're a dumb boy and you don't know math.
I like to think Kirito's just an idiot. And he's like...
I think that's probably the most likely explanation.
He's like sitting down very dramatically. He's like, you do not understand. Nabe-chan has done this over 100 bajillion times. Akira's like, that's not a number.
He like looks at the space battle in Eden Zero. Over 100 people must have died in that.
I like Gray Kirito writes Pokedex entries. She does it so often. She has to have an intellect of like 400,000 IQ. That's how smart she is.
That's not how IQ works. Oh my god. But yeah, so she's like, yeah, she must be going into a trance because we're nearing Gaku-san's village. She knows she's going to fight Gaku, so she's training herself by fighting against his image in order to be in top condition when she comes across him. Gero points out, should you, like, be telling me about this technique? And Kirito gives him this big shit-eating grin. It's like, I don't see any problem with telling you about it. The Gero family has a propensity for sneak attacks. The Kiyoshi family won't even reveal what they specialize in. Yeah, we don't know what that guy's clan is, even.
He was just there. He didn't do anything.
Kirito says, revealing our cards won't pose any threat to us whatsoever. We're a clan of ordinary people who don't have unique abilities like those altered lineage amplified techniques you all use.
We're the taijutsu users of this universe.
Yeah. Only those who persistently temper and train themselves can be iron users. That's what makes us the strongest. That's the Iron Man riff. Anyway.
Oh! Is it the... you mean Iron Man the song?
Yes.
Okay. I had to stop. I was like, does the character of Iron Man sometimes go like... Tony
Stark in the armor...
Warmonger's like, what? And then he gets hit by a rocket. And you're like, this is actually a pretty good strategy.
What a distraction. However, Gero says that the reason that he was completely outclassed is the sheer difference in the number of battles that we have fought. He says to Kirito, you're on a different level. You have an astounding dedication to strengthening yourself. So I hope you don't mind if I take a page from your book to better myself as well. And Kirito's like, oh, my plan is perfect. Now he knows how to become... Now he'll become a proper rival. And Gero is very adorably scribbling on a notepad for this. So.
Yes. Kinosaki.
Kinosaki. I was really struggling with that. Kinosaki wakes up. They have been in the room this whole time. They have
been like delightfully sleeping.
Just fast asleep. Meanwhile, people have arrived. Kaboom! Breach and entry in the walls of the shack that everyone is in. Immediately, the non-combatants, i.e. Kinosaki and the sleeping one, get covered by Gero and
Kirito.
And so Kirito just puts Nabe on his back and is like, oh, did word get out about this? Chinatsu goes to assist, but he says, like, nope, I'll guard her. Go and assist Gero. Gero grabs Kinosaki, puts him on his back, and says, Akakura, leave things here to me. Nabe is with Kirito, so go and help him. And so this presents her with the choice. She has to choose between going to assist Gero and going on her protection mission. And she says, what do I do? Who do I protect now?
I do legitimately like the crossroads that she finds herself in, where it's like two sides that are both like, go help the other side. I've got it. And you're like, oh, what do I do? Because I have a job and a conversation that just happened that explained that I probably have feelings for the other guy. What do I do? It's very cool. I wish the perspective had been different. I don't know if we necessarily needed the low-angle booty shot to be where this particular decision comes in from, but
it's nice to know that her pants fit, though.
It's also nice to know that, yeah, her pants aren't like slowly suctioning in deeper and deeper into her fucking, yeah.
This must mean that this doesn't take place in the same world as Sid Craft, then.
It's just that continent.
Yeah.
It's just that country. It's just that country they live in.
Japan for both of them.
Yes. No. Sid Craft's in England or something. Not England, but like Schmingland, you know? Like
England, and Mark O'Rupp.
Yeah. This also takes place in the same universe as Haikyuu, and Hinata played on the national team for that at one period of time. His volleyball shorts were a lot less comfortable during that period of time.
Akane-banashi, chapter 148. we get kind of like a little reintroduction to Akane, just so like, hey, this is what.
Wait, are we on New Exorcist?
I guess I wanted to spare myself that.
We can skip it. I mean, look, you're never gonna fight. You're never gonna see me say no.
New Exorcist, Chapter 88, Operation Return Roots. So, Gasha Doki Doki Literature Club has cornered Gakuro and Shiroha, and he says, so of course, what does Gakuro do? Xenodark! I'm surfing out of here, baby!
Peace!
Tries to just get away. So, Gasha Doki Doki panic, however, just immediately catches up. Whoop! But it's all right. He's got a plan, and he calls out to Karasu Tengu, who says, leave it to me, and goes inside the care package thing. And we are informed that in addition to all of Gakuro's bullshit instant heal items, there are bells in it. And he had been instructed to use them immediately to call out for a hollow weapon to be used. And Niue instructed Gakuro, saying, like, I know what you're going to say. Infiltrating won't be possible for more than one person. You need to act without being detected. But the way back is another story, because you won't be able to hide, and you'll have to get rid of attacking enemies. So I'm counting on you. Make sure you come home alive. All of you.
Nick! Are the other members of this fucking branch going to get to do something finally?
Evidently. So we get a look at the hollow weapon, which has lots of faces on it, and we see that there are two figures in clothing. I'm just gonna say clothing, who are standing before it, and they are instructed. This is a one-way ticket of transfer. You need to get yourselves home. Not to worry though. You two are geniuses. Show them how far you've leveled up. And wouldn't you know it, it's Suo and Shitatsu, and they've got their soul armor now. Their soul armor, which covers less of their bodies than their outfits did before.
What is soul armor if your entire navel and thighs are exposed? Like, I don't understand what that's ultimately meant to be implying at that point.
Also, I'm very concerned for Shitatsu holding that giant gauntlet arm with her hand, like, facing, like, this way in relation to her body. That's got to be a real strain on the shoulder to keep it twisted like that. So they teleport in. They've got soul armor. They, they kick Gasha Dokkan, and they start fighting him, and they're like, all right, let's go. And Gakuro's like, yeah, okay. Shitatsu says, like, hey, I'm glad that you're all right, to Shiroha. She says, we trained for this right up until the last minute. We've grown like crazy.
Cool.
Also, look at how hot Suo looks, right? And Gakuro's like, yeah, cool.
I love that Suo is like, I'm trying to be a respectable human right now. I don't need to be objectified in this dangerous mission moment. But Shitotsu is just like angry that fucking Gakuro is just like drooling of the mouth over the fact that two women are wearing hot pants near him.
I honestly, it took me a little bit to realize that this was Suo.
I honestly, I still don't believe it is Suo, because we know what Suo looked like, and we know what her fucking sword thing was. It was like the little wheels on her legs. And neither of those are present in her current design. So, like, I still, you could tell me this is someone else. I would believe you.
I literally only knew it because of the fact that she showed up with Shitatsu. There's like, oh, it must be Suo. Like, so... so they jump out of the massive pit that there was the stairwell leading down. They're out of it now. So good thing that we made sure to go through that massive thing. Anyway, so they're there, but they're still, of course, underground. But Gakuro points out the vent that he came down through. So he's like, we gotta go up through there. And so Shitatsu's like, all right, so I guess we gotta go there. All right. But then Gasha...
King Dororon.
Gasha Dororon bursts out of the ground, and but Suo's like, it's okay, we've got my hollow weapon, and she summons a jet. Just a jet. It's
Yeah,
you stand on it and it goes.
It's whose line is it anyway? The game where everything's made up and the points that you just do whatever you want, man. Like Shitatsu's fucking soul weapon is a bear now. It's just a bear. It eats you. Who cares? Who gives a shit?
Oh my god, I would love that. So they all get on the jet and they manage to just fly quickly away from Gasha Gojira, King of the Monsters. But he releases his hollow weapon, the Spirit Lance Nakigara, which is a big sword with a spine, I guess. And it shoots after them. But and Gakuro's like, oh no! But fortunately, Shitatsu is covering their rear, and she summons
unlike she's doing with herself.
Shitatsu summons 2 hands on chains and is like, I got it, guys. And she catches the lance with the gauntlets and also under her arm. But it was all just a thing so that Gasha Dokapon could teleport himself through the shadow to move up there. But it's okay because Gakuro slashes him in the ribs. And they exchange one-liners because he had gone, hey, out of my way to Shitatsu, and Gakuro goes, no, out of our way, and he's like,
got him, you got him, Gakuro, you destroyed him.
Also, Gakuro, there's a jet under you guys. You could have put Shiroha down on it before jumping towards the guy to attack him that's trying to steal her, but okay. They burst up through the shaft leading up, and they go all the way up through the roof of the Fujino estate. And I'm sure this won't cause any complications, considering there was a battle going on out there, and I'm sure they're not going to run into it at all.
Yep. I thought this was dumb. I don't care. I think these new designs are hideously stupid. I think that there should have been something cool to set up all of these power-ups as opposed to they've been working really hard off screen, so now they're wicked strong, and it's like, fuck off. I don't like... This should have been the Hueco Mundo, or not the Hueco Mundo, the Solstice. Like, they should have all jumped into this thing together, you know?
It really feels like both Shitatsu and Suo have been denied a chance to actually look cool because this is so rushed. Yeah. Also, I really just feel like Suo is just like from like Azure Frontier or one of those, gacha, games that where you just like have like a horde of women to recruit or something like that. She doesn't look like she is from this series anymore.
No.
Now we're gonna do Akane-banashi. Look,
yes.
There she is, Quinn. She is now 5'2". Okay.
She'd tower over Honoka's friend. To her, she's basically the 5,000-foot tall woman.
We get like a shot of like the story from like the cartoonish perspective that Akane, like the Rakugo world that Akane walks in, and there is like a very cartoonishly designed student that she is acting out, and then the master is drawn like very realistically, like almost in the same style that the rest of the series is in. But the student is, like he's not following everything, and he's just getting really, really upset. And he starts to like have an argument with himself for no reason until the master is eventually like, "Why are you arguing with yourself?" And that gets a big laugh from the audience. Aha. Whatever. Jealous guy that was setting Akane up for failure is like, how the hell? My plan was working perfectly, and she was feeling under the weather before. How? And Akane starts to go, I'm seasick from being on the boat. And hey, it's a punchline because he was just imagining being on the boat. She's even like throwing in like jazz about the situation into her work to accentuate it and make it funnier for the audience. So jealous guy is like, aren't you supposed to be better? And then he realizes she was up against the wall and realizes something that Rokuro had said, which is, aren't you supposed to be better because you can overcome mundane obstacles like this? Akane says, the teacher's got problems, but so does the student. And we cut to a really weird little moment of she's in the story. She is observing it, but she's also there in the story. And she thinks like, you think you're bored? I'm just the guy waiting around while his friend gets lessons. And it's so... And the master turns to her and says, oh, you've got a talent for yawning.
Ba-da-bum. It's very
Ends
silly.
the story. Yeah, ends the story in a big laugh. So she's like, is in character, because like it's a character that was like had introduced the student to the master and stuff like that, but it's her in that role. And it's not commented on at all, but I do like that we have that thing of like she's still like walking through the world of Rakugo, but she has at least a way of working it to her advantage now.
Sure.
Tyson has just observed all this and he's like, wow, she just completely like dominated this. And then she remembers the thing that Guriko told him, which was she's the only Rakugoka who ever got a Futatsume recommendation from your master. So in your future, watch out for her, basically. And so Tyson's like, I need my competition to be this good. So yeah, he's looking ahead for this. Akane's performance kind of goes viral. People are posting about it all over the place, and we get to see a bunch of people reacting to her return to the Japanese Rakugo world. We start off with Maikeru, and then we see reactions from Koguma. We see someone informing Kyoji over it, and Guriko is also off on his own, and he's like, I bet that Tyson his mind was blown. But even beyond that, we see Chocho reacting, Urara reacting, and finally Hikaru and Karishi reacting to it. And then we get Taisei, who that's how I always remember it, is double Taisei for his name.
Oh, okay.
That's how I always remember it. And his is the last reaction, which is, I've just been bored out of my mind waiting for you. And so we end the chapter with the narration saying, after 3 years of training in France and a long Makura introduction, at long last, Akane-banashi story 148, the Futatsume arc begins. We get this big image of Akane looking confident and triumphant for it.
Indeed. All right. Cool stuff. I'm excited for the arc itself to kind of begin proper and to see what these characters have done in the past 2 years. It's been nice getting to kind of reacquaint ourselves with Akane, but I want to see what all my other nudniks that I'm voting for in this popularity poll right now are up to.
That's right. There is a popularity poll, the first one for Akane-banashi being conducted right now. So if there is a particular character that you're fond of, then be sure to vote for them.
Yeah, you can vote every day, and every day I go in and I vote for Kaichi. And I'm like, here you go, funny dad. I want you to get a little bit higher in these polls.
Man, how am I not surprised by that? I just don't.
Well, I voted for a couple other people before I remembered he was in the series, because that's the kind of character he is in this series.
You're like, I gotta find more computers to vote on to make up for my.
Yeah, I was like, what a fool I was! I gotta go to other fucking IP networks. I gotta get my votes back. Nick, let's wrap up One Piece, or weekly manga recap with One Piece.
That's right. We're gonna end One Piece. It's gonna be our decision to end it.
Yeah, done and done. Chapter 1141, An Older Woman. Literally nothing changed in a cover page story. We're just looking at it from a different perspective. But page 1 is being threatened, and Ulti is real mad about it, as she should be. Mm-hmm. The chapter opens with Nami loudly complaining that she was expecting gigantic diamonds and ingots and pearls, and that's the only reason why she was in that stupid castle. She doesn't even care about this Loki dude. And Roto is like, shut up. Because the Giants are like, what's she talking about, Loki? And they're like, nothing. we cut over to Frankie talking to Ripley, and she explains how, yes, there are these enormous branches on this tree, and they all have their own history, but they note one that is completely severed off. And she's like, long ago, there was a village called Hagen on that branch. Lightning struck the village, it caught fire, and when a branch that old starts catches fire, it just doesn't go out. So in order to ensure that it didn't spread to the other branches, the village had to be cut off. Frankie, as ominously as a human or cyborg, I guess, possibly could do this, he's like, that sounds rough. I guess it really does mean that the vulnerabilities of Elbath are fire and lightning. And I'm like, interesting. Okay, keep those two in mind. Cut over to the village festival. Nami is shown back up, and Usopp is very drunk and is like,
He's so drunk.
Where you been, Nami? What's good? I gotta show you around.
Hey, she knows I have a beard now.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, this dude's name is Ja Rule. That's crazy, because I think there's a musician named that or something, too, and it can't be this dude, because he's real old. He introduces Nami to Ja Rule, and Ja Rule is, of course, like every man in this series, like, wow, she is extremely beautiful. And he's basically like, hey, Ja Rule, what's your type of woman, actually? And he specifically says, an older woman. And Usopp does the that doesn't exist slap thing, but he slaps the man on the sword that's embedded in his head, and he's like, ah! He starts screaming.
This helmet saved my life.
Yeah. They're like, don't you ever do that again. But Nami basically is watching all this, and she's like, I really can't blame Usopp for getting carried away here, because it's been his lifelong dream to come to this place. So she and Jinbei kind of like watch on from afar, while Sanji's just like, hey, where did Gerd go?
I've sensed that there is one less a beautiful woman among this group, and I need to find her again.
Look, we know that there's two gigantic, beautiful women, and one of them's not in this party. I probably also would be like, hey, where did the other giant, attractive woman go? She is over there talking to Roto and treating the two giant guards that were brought in there. And Ermagerd is like, hey, what happened? Explain to me what happened. These are castle guards. It's not a good sign. Roto's like, it's just one of those things. What are you gonna... And she's like, no, you're like really sweaty. Like, what's going on here, basically? And Roto just tries to deny it, but he's like, I probably should at least bring up the, report about an intruder who looked like red hair. But as he's, thinking that in the background, you can see Gerd is just winding up, and she just hits him in the head with an axe, and she's like, tell me what you're hiding.
It does at least seem like she hits him with the blunt end.
Yes.
But,
she does not kill him, yes. Cut to the underworld. Luffy and Zoro are down there at Loki, and they're like, holy shit, all the animals are fucked up? Like, what happened here? They note that he's breathing. But Zoro is like, hey, don't use the key yet. Something's wrong here. And Luffy's like, nah, look how hurt he is. He's not going to be able to do anything. Come on, help me. And we even have, Loki's trying to be like, help me. Oh, no, never mind. Sorry. Luffy stands on the cuffs, and that's how Zoro realizes, oh, those are sea stone cuffs. So it's like, all right, chill out, Luffy. Not yet. Luffy's like, no, a man is dying. We have to save him. Zoro's like, ain't my problem. I've never talked to this dude. All I know is what you've said. And if this is like...
Come on, Luffy. He's just a giant. Whoa!
And he's just like, look, we don't know how strong this guy is. If we have someone this big causing problems, it'll be like a big issue even for Elbath. So... Zoro says, all right, well, to get this going, and he kicks Loki in one of his wounds that causes him to start screaming, and he's like, all right, so these wounds are real. And Loki, starts to, try to intimidate Zoro. He's like, what do you think? And then just kind of passes out. And Luffy's like, oh, no, he's dead. And Luffy's like, if he's dead, he's dead. But here, will unlock his cuffs, but keep one of his legs still locked up with the Sea Prism Stone. And if he wakes up again, then we can talk to him. Luffy's like, all right, well, we should get Chopper here too. But Zoro's like, it's kind of far. And
That's
go
a far
find.
walk just to save a giant's life.
It's just, it's a giant, so it's just not like it really counts. But there's also a moment of Luffy being like, oh, we should get some food and stuff like that too. We should get meat. And Zoro's like, there's plenty of meat over there. And Luffy's like, those are our friends. This is like such a weird character moment of Luffy being like, I guess he had a lot of character growth in that time skip. He's like, you don't eat friends. And I'm like, you called Chopper emergency rations back in the day. In that moment, though, a boat starts to come from the distance, and it's Haryuden and his crew who have basically gotten all the information out of Rodo at this point, and they are rushing to stop Luffy from freeing Loki at this point. Apparently, when you go from the second land to the underworld, the clouds stop working, so they're just free-falling now, and they're probably going to die until Luffy uses Gumbo.
Also, Sanji's with them.
Oh, is Sanji also there?
Yeah, that's the "Don't worry, Gerd, I'll save you" in the middle of that.
Oh, I didn't even notice that Sanji's in there. Goofy uses Gum Gum Balloon, and they're like, oh, we're saved. It cushions their blow, but then, like a balloon, it just flings away. So the next shot is just Haryuden's crew, and they're all fucked up and covered in wounds, and they're like, thanks anyway, we're only severely injured instead of dead, I guess. But they're like, hey, we had to get here really quickly. Look, I've known Loki since he's a child. No matter what he's telling you, he's absolutely a liar. He's made up something to make you seem sympathetic. And Zoro's like, oops. Because Loki stands up. He is freed from the chains. And the
Except for the one manacle around his ankle.
Yes.
So.
And the chapter ends with him grabbing hold of his weapon and Haryuden's shouting, don't do it. Loki, take your hand off of Ragnar.
Hell yeah. I really love the image of him standing up, towering over Luffy to see the difference in size between them. I'm curious about Ragnar, if there is any meaning to the name beyond it kind of sounding like Ragnarok. But
I don't know any Norse mythology, unfortunately.
Ragnarok is the
I know that.
apocalypse. So.
I know what Ragnarok is. I just don't know what Ragnar would be.
So yeah, this was a fun chapter. Otherwise, beyond that, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what Loki can do when he's not, chained into a sitting position and unable to move. So it's been built up a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes.
Yes, very, very much so. But that is going to do it, Nick, for Weekly Manga Recap this week. What were your favorites and MVP?
I think that my favorite chapter was probably Akane-banashi. There's a fun conclusion to the story, but also just the excitement that we get of seeing all the different people hey, this is where everyone is, and reacting to the news, and it's done in a very, very nice way of I can't wait to see that person show up and that person show up, and still seeing certain people kind of kept in the shadows, not getting a good look at any of Akane's older brother apprentices, for example.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling to think of a favorite series this week. Nothing was super bad, but I don't know if there was anything that I would call crazy good this week. I guess if I was going to, it probably would be Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi. I think it probably is the most full of the chapters. But that said, I would probably give MVP to Loki or something like that.
I'm gonna make my MVP. It's kind of tough. Yeah.
In the meantime, I will note the audience picked. It looks like it's a tie between Akane-banashi and Sidcraft as the chapter of the week, and Anya is the character of the week.
It might be Anya, but I think I'm gonna give it to Asa. I really like just seeing her again and seeing that she has, been paying attention to all of this, and seeing the, dire straits that she is in.
Yes.
But it was a weird week where it felt like there was a lot of good manga, but not a lot of great manga. There were some really great moments that happened, but I understand your point about there not being a chapter that felt like it was like, oh, amazing this week.
Yes.
Even Ichi the Witch, I did like it, but it was like, I'm starting to feel like we might have finally encountered the character that's like only good, not like, oh, this is such a really interesting character that I want to see a billion chapters of. So,
yeah, I think we shall see.
All right. Well, guys, that's going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap. We want to thank you all for joining us here on twitch.tv/RoloT, where we record the show usually around 7:30 Eastern Time on Wednesdays. Although sometimes we do need to change things up, so stay tuned by following us on social media. She is RoloT. I am Nick F. Time. And there is also a Weekly Manga Recap BlueSky account, which also has a little notification when the stream goes live, in addition to our Discord channel. That will be linked wherever this gets posted. Our community is wonderful, has conversations on the chapters as they get released week to week, and also on the series that we take as recommendations. Currently, we are working our way all the way through Mission Yozakura Family, which of course recently ended. So we're getting all the way caught up on that to have a nice big in-depth discussion on that. We would like to thank everyone who helps make the show what it is. We've got Patreon, patreon.com/Weekly Manga Recap if you want to help monetarily support the show. And we also have bonus content on there, monthly bonus episodes where we talk about something that sometimes is not fully manga related. Actually, increasingly so. We've been talking a lot about comics on there in the last several months. We want to thank Milo Jack Stillins and Winston Cheddar for creating the opening sequence of the video version of the show, which can be seen on youtube.com/Weekly Manga Recap. Steve Mann also occasionally does title cards for us. You can search for his work. Just search Steve Mann Art, and you'll find it in many different places. And Ninjax3i helps the show in numerous different ways by keeping track of things that otherwise we would not remember. There is a Google Doc that will be linked as well. Can be found on the Discord server, where you can find recommendations that we have done and leave a recommendation for a future series, ask us a question for a future Q&A episode, and also see the weekly MVP and favorite series voting. All lots of different record-keeping things. So that's going to do it. For this week, we will be back next week for more Manga Talkie Time.
Yes. That's our new podcast name. You have to look for
Manga Talkie Time.
Manga Talkie Time. Some would say curious move after nearly 15 years of consistent branding to change it and
rebrand time
to something that many would say a significantly worse name for the channel. But we're just going to keep trying until we find the worst name for our podcast possible.
Yeah, we'll eventually just settle on Fwarp.
Honestly, Fwarp kind of goes hard. I don't hate Fwarp.
We won't have any difficulty nailing that one down. We're gonna have search engine optimization with that. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. People they won't be able to stop people from Fwarping. They're going to be constantly doing it. It's going to be the new trend. Teens are Fwarping. Teachers are furious. They're like, these kids would just stop Fwarping.
I'm very concerned.
And then they listen to it, like, who are these two old bitches talking about old manga? And I'm like, we're talking about current manga and One Piece, but...
See you next week.
Bye.